Hi, friends! I'm Zach.
I'm Mitch.
And we are an excellent little podcast.
We are here presenting you a little movie podcast starring Zach and Mitch.
We're doing a podcast?
Look, Zach, so I got a really bad phone call on the way here.
Oh, yeah?
It was the owners.
The owners of an excellent little podcast?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
They don't really like the direction that we're going.
Wait, are we sellouts now?
We're canceled.
Oh, we're canceled.
Yeah,
okay.
So they're going to keep us.
Okay.
They want us to do other stuff.
Got it.
But they want us to do something a little more along the lines of figuring out this DC plan.
Oh, God. I don't want to be those friends.
I don't know if
I'm just... distress, help me.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a bit of a different episode, ain't it?
It's going to be similar to the streaming versus cinema one that we did a couple months.
It's an expose.
It's a discussion.
Yeah.
But this one, boy, oh boy, we've got a lot to talk about. So.
Yeah, we're basically going to be talking about the shakeup with everything that's been going on with the DC Extended Universe and Warner Brothers being bought out by Discovery and going through a timeline of everything that's happened. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to probably as well bring up what's all been happening with Batgirl and everything. So
basically what we're trying to say... So basically what we're trying to say, grab some popcorn, grab your favorite soda pop, whatever you drink, get cozy, get a blanket, put on your headphones. This is going to be a doozy.
Strap in.
We got a lot. Oh, man.
Yeah, so Mitch, since this is going to be a little bit different of an episode for us, how exactly are we going to split it? Because there isn't exactly like a non-spoiler, spoiler section for this one.
So the way that we have it set up is I will give my thoughts of what we think, what's been going on. Mm-hmm. Zach will give his.
Sure.
We will talk about the old guard. Basically, some of the old cast, the old crews, the old directors, the old production management of the previous Warner Brothers / DC Films production area before pre-2022.
Yep.
And then we're going to discuss the new guard, such as the Discovery and other things such as a few HBO Max related stuff, some CW related things, and some other...
The new direction.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then we will give a very long timeline of events on how it started. Like, we're going to go back to Man of Steel, okay? Yeah. We've got a long timeline. So I say again, grab that stuff, man, because we're taking it by the balls. Literally.
Yep. And then we're basically going to pretty much recap everything, give our thoughts of what this future is going to look like, and then kind of move on with our lives and see how this actually transpires.
And we're going to get food.
Yeah. So, So, Mitch, you brought up that we're going to talk about what we think of how everything's been going on so far. So, Mitch, how do you think Warner Brothers has handled not only the DCEU, but as a production company as a whole? What have you thought the old Warner Brothers has been doing? Have they been doing great? Did they need help? Did they need a little bit of seasoning?
That's a different video, Zach.
How do you think they've been doing, and how do you think this new management has been doing?
So this video was a long time coming, because what's been going on with Warner Brothers / Discovery happened how often ago? Was it a couple weeks ago? I can't really think.
Do you mean
with all this stuff that's been, like, with Batgirl being canceled?
Yeah, that happened. Batgirl happened a couple weeks ago, but the systemic issues have been a while.
So I'm just going to go out there and just say Warner Brothers has literally handled the DC universe almost as bad as anybody can handle it. And this isn't the first time they've done this. They ruined Superman back in the 80s. They ruined Batman back in the 90s. They ruined Superman again with Superman Returns. And now they have this. And it literally all started with...
With a mouse?
Not with a mouse. It literally all started with... I hate to say this, because I love what he does, but it all started with Zack Snyder. I love what he's done. I know he's gone through a lot, but I think they put a lot of pressure on him to make a shared universe, which to me, for a director, that's almost near impossible.
Yeah.
It should have been somebody like a producer, like a Kevin Feige, but it wasn't just him. That's just how it started. And then it went on and on, you know, some things happened, some poor casting decisions happened, and reality of it is really, really bad handling of poor behavior has happened.
Yeah.
And I can't really go into further detail because that's a further section later on. Sure. But it's Warner Brothers, and I'm also including Discovery.
Sure.
They have not handled any of this timeline, even going back to Man of Steel up to now, 10 years. Neither company has handled these situations well. And this is a terrible predicament they've got themselves into, and it all started way back with 2013 and their decision to have Zack Snyder be that guy, that Kevin Feige guy.
Yeah.
And it literally it's one bad decision after another. It's one 10-year timeline. One bad 10-year timeline after another. It's one bad casting decision after another. It's one multiverse decision making after another. It's just, and the sad thing is, DC has great characters.
Absolutely.
Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Joker. It's just so many things have been going poorly for them over the last couple years, and all it needs is just good decision making, good storytelling, and good people behind the scenes to basically say, okay, we're not going to tolerate this behavior. It's either you clean up your act or do this, or we're just going to move on, instead of basically clinging onto certain people. Now, I feel like if I keep going, it's going to go into certain areas that we'll get to later.
Sure.
But Zach, please tell me what you think.
Yeah, absolutely. So Warner Brothers has been around forever. Literally, it's
about the same as Disney.
It's almost about as old as Disney. And I mean, you go back to like the Looney Tunes and like all their live action stuff that they were doing back then. They're one of the most well-respected film studios, or at least oldest. They know the business.
Sure.
So it's really sad to see how much of an identity crisis Warner Brothers has had within the last like 20 years.
Sure.
Because, I mean, since then, I mean, Batman has always thrived, but Superman has had its ups and downs. We've had so many. Looney Tunes has been mishandled. Their Cartoon Network, which is their child programming, it's had the biggest identity crisis I've ever seen of child programming,
right?
Because it's gone over. It's had the same name, well, kind of. Now it's the CN, but it's Cartoon Network.
Like Dexter's Laboratory.
But like their content has gone from left, right, and center. Some of the wackiest yet some of the most inconsistent content I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. Disney also has been kind of dropping the ball as of late too, but overall, like, it's like a lot of problems have been going on with DC, and then I feel like the straw that kind of broke the camel's back was when they saw the success of the MCU.
Yeah.
Specifically when Avengers hit in 2012. After seeing the whole shared cinematic universe coming together, DC was like, crap, we were in this game before.
Right.
Why don't we kind of start going on to the plot, and then started kind of rushing into things, and that's when like Zack Snyder and things kind of came about.
Well, that's also when The Dark Knight Rises, because Dark Knight Rises came out like 2 months after, and it didn't make it didn't make enough.
Yeah.
So,
and it's just, there's a whole lot that kind of goes on, and they just very terribly mismanaged DC. And then we got to the point where we got to like the pandemic, and we got Discovery buying them, like it. There's a reason why Warner Brothers was panicking. It's because they just didn't know, in my opinion, of where they were going and didn't know who they were. So by now having them bought out by somebody like Discovery, who I feel like knows who they are, and has a very clear vision of what to do, because you look at like HGTV, which has like very successful home building shows. Sure. And now they are the makers of Lifetime, who has they have their own C/D list movies that they know, but they make money on.
Yeah, they're not bad.
They're bad.
I've seen a few of them, and they're not bad.
But they make money. They
sure.
do.
Get ratings.
And Discovery just knows who they are.
Right.
And they continually build success after success after success. And that is thanks to their CEO, David Zaslav.
Sure.
So having a company and a person like that take over looks very good, but whether or not Discovery or David Zaslav can point the ship in the right direction again, who's to say? But with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the old guard that preceded what is going on recently. So, basically, with the old guard, when Avengers basically came out, Warner Brothers wanted a piece of the pie a little bit too quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So, Man of Steel, which was the Superman movie, was announced, but wasn't completely intended to be the jumpstart of a cinematic universe. So they were in the process of making it. They made it. It was pretty much shot and done. And Avengers then came out. And then Warner Brothers was like, oh,
cool.
Shoot. Cinematic universes are the thing now. So at the next Comic-Con, they kind of decided, like, hey, let's introduce a DC extended universe, as they called it.
Because at the time, you had the Arrow show.
Yeah.
The Arrowverse.
Which they wanted to differentiate from the Arrowverse, because the Arrowverse was starting to become really successful at the time.
Sure.
But it was TV.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted movies. They wanted cinematic.
Mm-hmm.
So because they just put out Man of Steel, they were like, hey, my friend Zack Snyder, which I do enjoy a lot of Zack Snyder films. I also do say that he's also got a couple of films, but like, to me, Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead, I love it. It's, to me, the best zombie movie ever created.
Man of Steel's really good.
Man of Steel is a very underappreciated movie.
I love 300.
300's amazing. Sucker Punch, not so much.
I like Watchmen.
Watchmen's good.
Yeah,
it can be a trek sometimes, but it's good.
And remember, when this project that we're about to discuss was announced, Batman had just finished Chris Nolan's Batman trilogy.
Well, they finished it right before Man of Steel because it came out a little bit before Man of Steel, because Man of Steel, its big marketing push was that it was executive produced. Well, it wasn't executive produced, but it was also produced by Chris Nolan. Chris Nolan helped it. I don't know how much. I don't think very much, but I know
he helped write the script.
I know Warner Brothers was basically like, can you help give Man of Steel credibility by adding your name to it?
Right. I also think he didn't help out as much because he was wanting to direct Interstellar.
Yes. So I think he more was a producer of the side of throw cash at it and your name and thank you.
So Man of Steel came out.
And then the following Comic-Con, they were like,
Let's announce something big.
We're gonna come in with a splash.
Because remember, that's when Age of Ultron was still being talked about.
Correct.
Too.
So they decide Zack Snyder is gonna direct Batman versus Superman.
Yeah.
Yes! And everyone cheers because it's the Cape Crusader against the Man of Hope going down, slamming down, and a Batman versus Superman film had been in the works. Well, in the talks. For years. It was even, there's a very famous scene in I Am Legend of Will Smith where you see they unveiled the logo for the original Batman versus Superman in that scene.
Right.
Everyone was like, oh, and Warner Brothers was like, yeah, we're doing Batman versus Superman. That was the logo. We wanted to unveil it in a cool way.
Yeah.
And then nothing after that.
But then this actually, and I remember watching the footage of that being announced. They showed the title card.
Yep.
You see the symbol, and then you see the bat signal right behind it. I mean, the whole room in that Comic-Con just
Hall H erupted.
I mean, they went ballistic.
Yeah.
I mean, there were people literally jumping up, and they would have blown the roof off.
And that's the thing, but they didn't even announce a Batman there.
And
they
then,
were like, they're like, this is it.
Who's Batman?
Batman's coming. We won't tell you who, but we're working on it.
Well, that was when, and there's like a month or two later where they announced, somebody wrote that they wanted Christian Bale back.
Yeah.
And like they were going to give him a big hefty sum, but then he announced like, no, they didn't even talk. But then
we get into Ben Affleck, who was announced.
Oh man.
Okay, here's the thing. A lot of people were like, ugh.
It was a lot worse than that. It was a lot worse than that.
But yeah, it was on the level of like Heath Ledger when Heath Ledger was announced to be the Joker. Everyone was like, absolutely not,
because he had made Daredevil and Geely and all that stuff.
But because I'd seen like a whole bunch of Ben Affleck's movies, and I was like, no, y'all, like
this guy,
this is genius. Because not only is this man a phenomenal actor, he's a fantastic director. If you look at Argo, which won Best Picture like a year or two before, I was like, imagine a film written, directed, and starred by a Best Actor, Best Director, and Best Film winner. Like, I'm sorry. That's amazing.
Right.
So, like, I was on board to have Ben Affleck. And, you could get into, like, a grizzled kind of, like, Bruce Wayne. Possibly even get into Batman Beyond. Like
right.
I was like, oh, we could get into it.
He just turned 40, I think.
But, like, I was excited about that. But then we got into... which then brought us into the very big realm of a whole bunch of people being introduced with Ezra Miller as the Flash,
Ray Fisher as Cyborg,
Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. Jared Leto was later introduced as the Joker, who was going to then premiere in Suicide Squad. We have Margot Robbie playing Harley Quinn.
Which, one quick thing before we keep going.
Yep.
Margot Robbie... literally carrying this whole universe on her back.
Right now, yeah.
I mean, quite literally, she is carrying the whole DC universe on her back.
And then lately, we in recent times, we had the addition that Michael Keaton was going to put the cowl back on for some multiverse things. And Robert Pattinson was announced to take over the Batman role, but in its own universe. And Joaquin Phoenix was also announced to be the Joker in his own universe.
Leslie Grace is Batgirl.
Leslie Grace is Batgirl announced, and Brendan Fraser to play her Firefly, and J.K. Simmons continuing on his Detective Gordon role.
And one quick thing, you mentioned Brendan Fraser. Out of everybody that we mentioned, I was so excited to see him as Firefly because his career, God bless him, his career has literally starting to skyrocket again after it was literally gone for the past 10 years. I am so excited to see what that man does from now on. And to see him not be in this movie, even though everybody was so excited to see him in this movie, and it not be made, I'm so pissed off for him. Like, it's so disappointing.
But all this old guard had admittedly of actors is one of the cruxes, I feel, of Warner Brothers, because not only was their handling a bit rough.
Yeah.
It's not that Warner Brothers didn't spend money on good talent, because all these people that we listed
very talented,
are very talented actors. They just, some of them had some problems attached to them, and some of their problems got the better of them. I mean, like, the only wholesome person, to be honest, that I feel like we've gotten out of these people, to be honest, is probably Henry Cavill and Jason Momoa.
Yeah. Well, Gal Gadot too.
Gal Gadot, she's
been having issues.
She's been having issues, but she's just kind of bland. I'm not saying that she's bad, but she's just kind of like,
like she's speak with your heart, Zach. I
mean, I think she's okay. She's not bad, but she's just meh. But then we also get into a really big issue that, because with actors and actresses, they did have quite a bit of a say in like their characters and maybe some storylines and whatnot. But then we get into the next tier, which is the tier above them, which is kind of like the feel, how each movie and whatnot kind of feels, their tones, everything comes down to your directors and producers.
So the way that it started all with Zack Snyder.
Yep.
Who was then, I don't want to say replaced,
he stepped
away from making Justice League.
Yes.
And then Joss Whedon came.
Yep.
So everybody, I'm going to talk about Joss Whedon here. Joss Whedon made, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He made that, what was that?
Firefly.
Yep.
And Avengers.
And Avengers Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
So he was a very sought after name.
Yeah, and very prime candidate, especially since he also has been very vocal of wanting to make a Wonder Woman movie. So the fact that he's dealt with cinematic universes before successfully, especially with the first Avengers movie, having him step in for Zack Snyder and Justice League specifically seemed like a no-brainer.
But some stuff happened.
That we'll get into later.
Yeah, and the sad thing is, I hate to be this guy, but I kind of saw it coming.
Yeah,
I truthfully did, and we'll discuss that when we get further down.
Yeah.
Then you have,
but that's the thing that we should talk about is, so Zack Snyder's tone is very grungy, very dark, very serious, but Joss Whedon is very lighthearted,
tries to be funny
and colorful and funny, and so two different messages kind of going on there. And then you have Patty Jenkins, who is a very wonderful middle of the road between the two. I was just
about to say, she was very middle.
She's got really wonderful comedy chops, but also really wonderful serious chops.
Sure.
And she's very particular on the projects that she works on. Like,
she left Thor: The Dark World.
So she's very particular on her style.
Sure.
So her style is also very unique compared to Zack Snyder and Joss Whedon. And then you have James Gunn, who is literally batshit crazy, but awesome. Whose tone is also very different from all the friends that we mentioned. And then we have Matt Reeves.
But in a different universe.
But still
very dark.
Different.
And his was more... we didn't discuss this when the Batman came out. That movie was very political.
Yeah.
And his was... he didn't I don't think he meant it to be political, but there was a part when I know in the script writing, like, I'm going to make this part political. Yeah. I'm going to do it on purpose. So his is a very...
politically charged.
Yes. And also current events esque type of director. I feel
along kind of similar in the vein of Todd Phillips as well.
Oh, I know he says Joker wasn't political. That was the most political movie I have ever seen since Clockwork Orange.
Well, it's
in my humble opinion,
in terms of like mental illness and whatnot.
Correct.
Yeah. And then again, newcomers, very newcomers to the big screen, AAA multi-billion-dollar films. Aldi El Arbi and Balil Falah directing Batgirl. They
were so excited to make the film.
They are more TV and music video oriented, but they were starting to really come to prominence, especially with Miss Marvel and Batgirl.
They were so excited to make this film.
They were excited to make both of these films really well.
Yeah.
But again, very different style compared to everyone before.
Sure.
So that tonally made Warner Brothers and DC very weird and different. But if you look at Marvel, yes, tones can vary and stray, but they can still
coexist,
cohere, and feel in the same universe, whereas these ones, it's zigzagging left, right, and center.
Well, they
and diagonally.
Didn't have a person or a group of people just making sure, like, okay, great tone, I love it, but just make sure that we keep it in the line of the broader scale of the Marvel Cinematic Multiverse now going forward.
Which that was supposed to be, as we bring up to our next point, the production management, the actual executives, all of everybody there. So we have Jeff Johns and Walter Hamada, who were supposed to be the Kevin Feige's of all this. Specifically, Jeff Johns was the one that was supposed to be kind of the more so Kevin Feige, while Walter...
I have to say, that is a horrible decision.
Yeah.
Jeff Johns does not have a fucking clue how to deal with films in general.
Correct, because he is a comic person.
Correct.
He has not much experience in terms of actual film or TV production.
Well, let's think of it this way. He wrote the script for Green Lantern in 2011. So in reality, this shared universe was going to start with Green Lantern. Because he doesn't have a clue.
Yeah.
I just don't... And as soon as I heard that he was going to be the head after Batman v Superman had its problems, they're like, oh, he's going to help. He's going to do this. It's going to be great. Absolutely not. I knew right away he was going to be terrible because he just has this idea that every single superhero has to have either A, a hopeful tone, or B, a dark tone. Yeah. There can be both at the same time. Just ask Iron Man. Just ask Captain America. Just ask Spider-Man. Yeah. Literally, you have one of the two of the greatest superheroes in Superman and Batman, and he literally fails miserably at both.
Yeah.
I knew right away that was a horrible, horrible decision.
Yep.
I mean... Literally, and the way that he talks about some of the characters and literally some of the directors, he doesn't give a crap about any of them. This man does not deserve to lick the dirt off of my shoe. That is literally terrible.
Well, and also, I also have to bring up Walter Hamada as well, who was in charge of Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make a kind of a sort of comparison between two. Walter Hamada is very similar to Bob Iger in the sense of he is a very hands-off CEO. He believes that he should step in when he's needed, but in other terms, the business will run itself.
Sure.
There are positives and negatives to both. Bob Iger is a person. Overall, Bob Iger, I feel like if you look at the overall success of Disney, I would commend him, and I would say he's been one of our better CEOs overall.
Because he hired very good creative people to handle certain...
He knew who to have in the room with him.
Correct.
Which was smart. Walter Hamada, however... was all the negatives of Iger. He was too hands off. He wasn't entirely, it felt like he wasn't entirely sure who should be in charge of things.
Right.
He, whenever there was an issue, he would continue to push it aside or not talk about it. Mm-hmm. He would always try to stay as far back and away from the limelight as possible. Mm-hmm. And when you're in charge of a huge company like Warner Brothers, you can't do that.
Yeah, you got to step in
you're
needed.
You've got to be vocal. You have to be... and again, we are cast members, so we don't speak for the brand of the company, for the Walt Disney Company. But, right. I mean, if you look at successful CEOs like Walt Disney, he was the face of the company.
Right.
Bob Iger, while he wasn't the entirely face of the company, and he did like to sit more in the shadows, mm-hmm. when it was time that he needed to be out in the open and talking about things, he was always out there and talking about stuff.
Sure.
You rarely saw Walter Hamada's name.
I didn't even know who this guy was. I truthfully didn't know who he was until the certain allegations that was brought up during the Justice League reshoots. I looked at this guy's name. I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? Yeah. And I looked up his Wikipedia page and I saw that he was in charge of the, what's the franchise? The Conjuring franchise.
Oh, yep. Mm-hmm.
He was the head of it. And I'm like, okay, so he knows shared universes-ish.
Sort of, yeah.
But... and then I looked at it a little more, and I'm just like, this is literally a money guy that is in charge of a big film, one of the biggest film libraries ever.
Yeah.
And now you're talking about trying to handle a set of DC characters who, and I'm willing to bet you $1 million, this guy probably, before he took the job, mm-hmm. didn't read a single comic book.
Yeah. Well, and granted, DC is a smaller portion of Warner Brothers.
Sure.
So
yeah, Harry Potter.
So yes, in terms of brands and whatnot, yes, as a CEO, you should know your brands pretty darn well. Mm-hmm. I will give him some credit in terms of maybe not being as learned on some areas as others.
Sure.
It happens.
Mm-hmm.
Like, heck, if we were talking about like jobs on themselves, there would maybe be certain areas in my job that I feel more confident in than in other areas.
And I'm the same way.
So it comes with the territory of knowing multiple areas.
Sure.
However, at the same time, you do have to be the leader and navigate through whether you know it or not.
Sure.
But another thing that we'll also kind of throw in on top of that with the old guard is the idea and brainchild of the old guard coming all into fruition with one singular service, HBO Max.
So here's the thing. HBO Max was announced right after Disney Plus.
Correct.
And Disney Plus was going to be this big service that was more about quantity over quality. They were going to spend more money on... This is when Bob Iger was in charge. They were going to put more money into their original content, from what I saw.
Correct.
But HBO Max...
So you mean quality over quantity?
What did I say? Quantity over quality?
You said you said quantity over quality.
Well, quality over quantity.
Yeah.
Rewind.
But at the same time, too, you also have to look. It was both for Disney Plus. It was both the quantity and the quality.
Correct.
Because you were going to have almost the entire catalog of all of Disney, all of Marvel, all of Lucasfilm, almost all Lucasfilm, and all the Muppets and National Geographic and Pixar.
Fox.
And later Fox, yes. But Fox's acquisition was... Mm-hmm. Thinking ahead with Disney Plus.
Well, and HBO Max, like I remember when they announced, they literally kept buying all this content. They bought the rights for Friends, which, I mean, it cost them almost $500 million.
Yep.
Big Bang Theory also almost cost them $1 billion. Yep. South Park, almost $500 million.
Yeah.
I know I said Friends, I said Big Bang. I mean, they literally spent just on content that was already made, like third-party content.
Yeah.
I think they announced it, they spent almost $5 billion. That's a lot of money.
On properties that aren't yours.
And on sitcoms.
Yep.
Which, I mean, I love Friends. I love Cheers. I love Frasier. I love Big Bang. But you can only do so much with sitcoms.
Yep.
I mean, not every sitcom is Seinfeld.
Yeah.
So, and I heard all that. I'm like, okay, but how much money are you going to spend on your original content? And I knew, because I love HBO Max. I have it. I watch it a lot.
Okay.
But when I look at HBO Max, I'm like, okay, what's the difference between HBO Max and their actual HBO channel? And that's where I think Warner Brothers kind of struggled with it, because they were like, so we have HBO Max, but we're going to keep HBO.
Yeah.
And fans were like, okay, but
what's the difference?
What's the difference? And Warner Brothers literally were like, so you can watch the shows on HBO, but if you want to watch it again, you got to pay extra for HBO Max. But if you want to see them at the same time, you got to pay for HBO Max. But fans were like, but we have HBO. Shouldn't we just get HBO Max for free? And they're like, no.
Money.
So I feel like HBO Max was a victim of, again, poor management.
Yep. And then we get into ultimately what was the crux of all of this. COVID-19 then steps into the ring.
Yeah.
So in the midst of the beginnings of the streaming wars, after everything's been announced and things start to launch, COVID-19 hits. Which also somewhat lucky for these brands that they just so happen to launch these a little bit before the pandemic of all of us getting stuck literally in our homes.
Well, HBO Max was launched in May of 2020. Disney Plus was in November.
Oh, you're right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I remember literally sitting at home and I looked at my phone and it said HBO Max launches. I'm like, crap, I forgot.
Yep.
And I was allowed to get it because I bought HBO through Hulu. So now
gotcha.
I don't have to pay extra.
Hey, but so with the whole
Panini,
HBO or Warner Brothers, not HBO, Warner Brothers made the catastrophically shit-tastic idea that because cinemas were not going to be as profitable in the near future, they were like, hey, everybody, without talking to our business partners and directors and producers, we are going to have every single cinematic movie that we are going to introduce go day and date both to theaters and HBO Max, to which came an outcry of,
what the
excuse me?
Yeah, I mean, and it was big movies too. You know, you had Space Jam, you had Mortal Kombat, you had the Suicide Squad, you just had tons and tons of films that should have made, I mean, they wouldn't have made a ton of money during the pandemic.
Correct. They probably would have not made a huge splash in the pandemic.
No.
But, like, I'm sorry, movies like In the Heights or whatnot, which should have done better, but were squashed because it split your pool of money, basically. It split your audience. Mm-hmm. So you couldn't tell if something was successful or not at the theater or on streaming.
Right.
Because you don't know who would actually come out for it.
Sure.
So all of Warner Brothers movies during the pandemic kind of failed.
They literally did.
Because they had them day and date released on HBO.
Well, and that's why certain films like Elvis and The Batman and other films like that, I think there was more to the delay for The Batman than a lot of people think. I think this was one of the main reasons.
So that it would not go on HBO?
I think so.
Yeah.
And more credit goes to Matt Reeves and Baz Luhrmann, the director of Elvis, because I want to see the Batman in theaters. I don't want to see it in streaming.
No,
first.
and Elvis would have been would not have been as impressive if it was watched on just a regular TV.
Yeah, I would have. I would not. I would have canceled HBO if Elvis would have been. But again, it goes back to what we discussed at the beginning. Just very poor decision making.
Yeah, all around when it comes both to all this old guard. But now we step into the new guard of David Zaslav and Discovery deciding, you know what? Warner Brothers, we're going to go ahead and we'll right the wrong ship. So like I alluded to, David Zaslav kind of saw what was kind of going on with Warner Brothers and made
he made a splash,
huge splash in taking care of all the assets that he did in Discovery, nurturing them, getting them going, and has turned Discovery into a very respectable company.
Sure.
And he took all those assets and was like, hey, Warner Brothers, if you need an out, here's a check. To which Warner Brothers said, yeah, we just greenlit a Wonder Twins film. We'll take that check.
And don't forget about the Batgirl, too.
So they're like, yeah, we don't know what we're doing. Go ahead. You can take over for us. Mm-hmm. So the deal is now officially finalized. It is now under Discovery officially. Mm-hmm. And there has been a bunch of things that has happened since then. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and talk about a few more things before we get into our big popcorn timeline.
Yeah.
That we'll go into. But we'll go ahead and talk about really quick right here, specifically what this new guard is kind of trying to do with it, with Warner Brothers and with DC specifically. Mm-hmm. So the first thing that I'll mention is that before, DC was just kind of a brand. It wasn't its own studio. Mm-hmm. Zaslav made it its own studio now.
Kind of like what Marvel Studios is.
Correct.
Now.
So
now it's actual DC Studios.
Now it's DC Studios. So that was a good step, in my opinion. It's a good step in the right direction. So now it's its own studio. Doesn't have a head just yet.
Nope.
But they're looking.
It may be a while.
Might be a little bit, but they're looking. But that's one thing that I feel DC specifically needs right now.
Kind of like a Kevin Feige, yes.
Is a Kevin Feige. I also feel like with everything that's been going on with J.K. Rowling, Wizarding World could use one of those too.
But that's for another episode.
That's for another episode. But right now, David Zaslav actually feels like the success of Warner Brothers comes down to DC. He fully believes that DC is actually like going to be the saving grace of Warner Brothers.
And he's literally said that these films, these DC films, they're going to be this big epic event films.
To the likes of Marvel, as he is compared.
Which, I mean, to give him credit, he's not necessarily wrong.
No, that is correct. And DC has the power for it.
Absolutely they do.
To me, I've always compared, when I compare Marvel and DC, I've always compared it this way. Marvel, because of their success, have been able to garner more support in their characters. However, the strength of DC has always more so been their characters, and the strength of Marvel has always more so been their stories.
Yes.
Marvel's stories make their characters better, when DC's characters make their stories better. Mm-hmm. Before the MCU and before DCEU, you knew more DC characters than you knew Marvel characters.
Yeah, see, back in the day when I was younger, the only Marvel character I knew was Spider-Man.
Pretty much just Spider-Man, right?
And I knew about Batman. I knew about Superman. I even knew about Wonder Woman.
Yep.
I didn't know about Iron Man. I didn't know about, well, I knew a little bit about Captain America. I knew a little bit about Fantastic Four. I knew more so about the Hulk than most.
Sure.
Because that was because my brother was obsessed with it.
Sure.
But I knew way more about Superman and Batman. But it also goes back to, you know, these characters, Superman and Batman, they are almost 90 years old.
Yeah. So they've been around for a lot longer than Marvel. So then again, Marvel's stories like Civil War, Secret Wars, The Avengers, their stories are what kind of built their characters. Where I feel like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, their characters were built first and their stories were built around them.
Correct.
Similar to and then their villains and whatnot were kind of again geared towards them to varying degrees of success, which Batman and Joker, I'm sorry, it doesn't matter what Marvel ever puts out, there's no more iconic duo than Batman and Joker.
Right, or Superman and Lex Luthor.
Correct. So now with the MCU, there have been more Marvel characters brought into light and become more popular than they were. So it's a little harder to make that argument, but to me, DC has the characters, Marvel has the stories. So I feel like Zaslav is correct on that.
I do agree.
DC is the thing that can bring Warner Brothers up again. And he did that by canceling the Wonder Twins movie, which, thank God, I don't need a monkey in a water bucket transforming twins. Weirdest stuff ever. He just recently sold off controlling interest to the CW, to Nexstar.
Which I think, to be fair, I'm going to catch a lot of flack for this. I think that's a good decision because all the CW shows were starting to get really boring and very poor in story making.
Sure, I agree. Like the beginnings of Arrow, The Flash,
DC Legends of Tomorrow.
Those were all at the beginning very great.
Absolutely.
And as time went...
And Supergirl?
And Supergirl. Supergirl was great. But as time went, each of those projects kind of just started to kind of drip in quality.
I think, and this is why I think Marvel may have a better understanding of their streaming and TV shows, is because they understand that superhero shows don't need to be 5 or 6 or 7 seasons long.
Nope.
They don't. 2 or 3 tops.
Well, and that's the thing that Marvel has always been really great at, is they think of the grand story overall.
Right.
And then tell the smaller stories through their characters. So you only need a movie of Captain America, a season of Miss Marvel, or of Moon Knight. Like, you don't need to have these series be continually going on and on and on and on and on.
And for 24 episodes, too.
Do I feel Disney Plus needs more episodes on their shows? Yes. Daredevil. But at the same time, they also... they're kind of weird. But we're not talking about Disney Plus. We're talking about Warner Brothers.
That's for maybe a next month episode.
But then we kind of get into, again, a kind of a thing that Discovery brought on, or kind of took with it from the original Warner Brothers, is that, again, DC was kind of a little bit split. Is it a multiverse? Is it a bunch of solo outings? Is it split universes? Is it shared universes?
Is it a multiverse?
Is it a multiverse? Like, what is it? And Warner Brothers honestly just didn't know.
I don't think Discovery knows either now.
And Discovery, I feel like, has a plan, but doesn't know either. I think, and the issue is that Zaslav is going to double down on the Snyderverse. He's already confirmed it. That's what he's going to do on, like, the DCEU, like, Snyder direction. Since it's established, that's where they're going to continue heading. Whether or not Zack Snyder is going to be continue or involved, who knows? But those actors, those characters, those iterations are what's going to continue.
But you're going to
However, because of how successful Joker and the Batman were, they are also going to continue. Mm-hmm. So, and to be honest, you would be ignoring money if you dismissed any of them, and it would be a headache to yet reboot Batman and Superman yet again for a new cinematic universe.
Right.
So, hard hand dealt, a good move forward. Mm-hmm. Because you can always tweak and change a universe. Mm-hmm. So, we'll see where the DCEU pivots and changes, but it's nice to have a little bit of familiarity in that and keeping that universe at least alive.
I think it's going to be the complete opposite.
Oh, yeah?
I think when a certain movie that I'm not going to mention, when it comes out next year, and Zach, you know what movie I'm talking about.
It's The Flash. It's
The Flash. I think that's going to be a flashpoint where he's going to go back and everything's going to be rewritten. So
I think it will be somewhat rewritten, but at the same time, it's still going to be the DCEU. It's still going to feel DCEU-like.
I agree, but I don't see actors.
Oh, don't get me wrong. Some actors are no longer going to be there.
I don't see Henry Cavill coming back. I don't.
Maybe. It's possible.
I also don't see Ben Affleck coming back.
He's not coming back. I think he's doing his cameos that he has agreed to, but I don't think he's coming back.
I know somebody mentioned that Michael Keaton is going to take over. I don't think
he's not staying.
I think it's not going to be Pattinson. Mm-mm. I think and there's going to be
might have a Batman Beyond situation on our hands pretty soon.
But the sad thing is I would love a Batman Beyond. You would love a Batman Beyond?
But we disagree on the Batman who should be old Bruce Wayne, don't we?
Sure, yes.
Yep, because you want Keaton and I want Ben
Affleck,
and neither of them will do it.
But I also think Warner Brothers is going to they're going to get another young Bruce Wayne.
Possibly.
I think that's what's going to happen, and now you're going to have so many audiences be like let's just throw this in perspective. Let's say you have the Batman 2.
Yep.
And then after The Flash comes out, you have a Batman title called The Caped Crusader.
Sure.
And they come out a year apart.
Sure.
So big group of people go see the Batman 2. Then and in front of it you see the Caped Crusader trailer.
Yep.
They're going to be like, aren't we seeing this movie?
Yeah.
So I think they're stuck in that kind of problem.
Yep.
And it's not the new guard's fault.
No,
it's the old guard basically saying
they don't know what to do.
They didn't know what to do. But I think what really is the cause of this now multiverse problem is The Flash.
Yeah,
it's that film and what's going on behind those scenes and what's been going on with
which,
that.
Again, it's an issue, and we'll get more into that as we move to the timeline.
Yes.
But we also, another thing that we'll kind of bring in with the new guard is one smaller thing that we'll kind of discuss, or two kind of smaller things that we'll discuss, and then one big thing that we'll discuss. The two smaller things of being the 10-year plan that Zaslav has announced that, we do have a 10-year plan for the DCEU. We know what the next 10 years have looked like. We have it planned out. But they announced that they are looking for someone like Kevin Feige, but they don't have him yet. Or her yet. Whoever they are going to be. And I feel like that's already a misstep.
Yeah.
To have a 10-year plan without the person in the chair
that's bad.
That's not good, because that's not that person in the chair's plan.
Right.
The reason why the MCU is successful
It's because of Kevin Feige's
is because
plan.
it was Kevin Feige who created the plan.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Feige had a 10-year plan and made that.
Mm-hmm.
You can't make the plan before
You
the
get the
person
guy,
in
yeah.
the chair.
Mm-hmm.
I love you, Zaslav, but that's not... You're already making a misstep here.
I think what may happen... I also kind of think that he was just saying that to calm people down a little bit. Mm-hmm. They have the person in mind. I think they wanted Kevin Feige really bad, but
They wouldn't get him still.
I think they knew that they weren't going to get it. I feel like
they might have done a similar situation of like, here's a check. Think about it. And Kevin Feige went,
no. I feel like they called him during I have a feeling they may have called him during either the pandemic or during this merger that they're doing. They called him and be like, hey, Zach, or hey, Kevin. So you know how you've been having some problems with, Marvel and Sony and Spider-Man No Way Home and other things. So you want to come to DC? Kevin be like,
my problems are a small bit compared to that. Absolutely not.
I feel like also he was one of those, like, let me think it over. I got somebody that wants to do a fourth Spider-Man film. Hung up the phone. But yeah, I feel like, and I'm worried, because someone dumb has put Jeff Johns as a candidate. Terrible. Throw that out. Somebody said Greg Berlanti, the head of the Arrowverse. I don't like that idea.
He's got the idea in scope.
But he made Green Lantern.
But Berlanti also, he also made Green Lantern. But also, another thing too, with Berlanti, he had a good idea. I feel like for Arrow and Flash and whatnot, I feel like he had like a 3-year plan.
He did.
And then after that, he was just like, shoot, I don't know where else to go. Crisis on Infinite Earths?
Yeah.
Eventually?
And then
and then just kind of let the writers do their own thing, and they're like, no, let's kind of go back to Crisis, and then Crisis happened and was kind of a mess.
Well, it wasn't just Crisis on he made like 3 Crisis. He made like Crisis on Earth X, and then Crisis something else, and then it was Crisis on Infinite Earths, and I'm just like, what?
Yeah, it just...
And it wasn't... I feel like it could have been a lot better if they had something Batman related.
Well, they tried to make Oliver Queen Batman.
No, that failed miserably.
Yeah.
They didn't even include Gotham. And Gotham was 10 times the show compared to all the other shows. Gotham was such a better show than any of those.
But yeah, it's...
Blah.
But I feel like Greg Berlanti could be a candidate, but is not still the right pick for it.
No.
And the hard thing is that like there really isn't anyone else like Kevin Feige but Kevin Feige.
I know.
Which is the hard thing. So, because the thing with Kevin Feige was that like he worked on Fantastic Four, he worked on X-Men, he worked on Spider-Man. He was in the trenches of superhero movies at the time, and he was learning and going through it and realized, okay, this worked, this failed, this is what we could do better, this is what would make superhero movies better, and then he did it.
Somebody mentioned Kevin Smith, but
Kevin Smith would... it's kind of almost like a Jeff Johns situation where he knows comics. Does he make films? Yes. But
hey, those movies like Mallrats and Clerks.
Like Mallrats and Clerks knows what they are.
Right. And Jane
they
Silent
aren't.
Bob.
They really aren't made to be triple A's. They're BC movies and know that.
I think someone asked him that. It was like, hey, would you want to be the head of the DC films going forward? I think he looked at him and be like, no.
Are you kidding?
I'm okay with the indie projects.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So
because he had a terrible, terrible time with writing the Superman Lives script.
Yeah.
I mean, he literally I think he was pretty big back then.
Yeah, he was big back then.
And he said he lost weight, he lost hair because of that, because he had to cater to every single studio demand.
Yep.
I don't know if he wants to do that again.
Yeah, no.
And I know he has some heart issues too, but again,
it's just it's
you literally need to find a needle in a haystack.
Yeah.
Marvel got that, but I just hope for DC's sake there's another needle in another haystack.
Yeah. It's just one of those things of where, like, Kevin Feige fell into Marvel and Disney's lap.
Right.
It wasn't the other way around. So it ultimately kind of is what it is. But now and the other little small thing that we'll also talk about is in the same presentation of the 10-year plan, David Zaslav very, for lack of the better word, stupidly.
Yeah, it was dumb.
Said, okay, so we have two different audiences. We have HBO Max, which is more male-centric, and Discovery Plus, which is more female-centric.
What now?
I'm sorry?
That was literally my reaction. Like, dude, what now? I mean...
No. That's
not even close.
It's no. You might know the statistics. Sure, maybe HBO Max might be a little more dude heavy, and Discovery Plus might be a little more dudette heavy. But like, we're all dudes. We're all dudettes. Like there are tons of like content that's good for women and different genders on HBO Max, as well as really wonderful content for men and different genders on Discovery Plus.
You know how many people of different genders that are so excited to see that Game of Thrones prequel series?
Mm-hmm. Also,
that's going to go straight to HBO Max.
Yep. And then also, I'm sorry, I'm always down for a great home refurbishment show. Like, why the...
So
Property Brothers is amazing.
No, it is.
I love it.
I don't watch that shit.
But like, still,
I get
like,
you. Yeah,
it's the two services aren't gender exclusive.
No,
that's weird. That's why would you corner yourselves with that?
I'm hoping they combine them. I feel like that would be the smarter idea.
Yeah,
have it as. List it as the HBO Max price, because $14 just for HBO Max is a little too much.
Yeah, so maybe clumping it with Discovery Plus.
I feel like that would be much better.
Yeah,
but yeah, again, there's a lot of good content.
Yeah,
that isn't just. I mean, Sex and the City and HBO Max. Come on.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
I mean, literally.
Yeah,
that's not male driven.
No,
that's.
But yeah, so those are the two.
Some of it, I'm sure, is male driven.
But like those two things with the 10-year plan and the gender split thing, those are kind of the two smaller things that we should talk about. But then we have our big thing, which is Batgirl.
Yeah.
So it was announced that Batgirl was going to be canceled. Now, like how you said, having not seeing Brendan Fraser as Firefly is a huge downside to this.
Yeah. And Leslie Grace's
Batgirl. Who I loved her in The Heights. I thought she was a wonderful Nina. Like, I love her. To not see her interpretation of Batgirl and to not see like J.K. Simmons again as Gordon, like I'm really sad about that. As well as the two directors who they directed the first and last episode of Miss Marvel, which were two of my favorite episodes of Miss Marvel.
Sure.
So to see their project get kicked is really sad and unfortunate.
Sure.
But a really also sad and unfortunate thing to hear is there's been a lot of people in the industry that have seen this movie evidently, and they say it is below dog shit bad.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of people have been saying that this is really bad and it genuinely would hurt the brand if it were to go out. Like I know one person that I follow said it's worse than the 1980s Fantastic Four film.
You're kidding. I heard it was bad. I didn't know it was that bad.
I heard another person compare it to the likes of worse than the Daredevil films. Wow. I heard one person say that The Room was more entertaining, or what was the movie The Room was based off of? Hi Mark, like, movie.
I can't. I'm drawing.
You're drawing a blank.
Yeah.
Whatever. The one that's like so terribly bad. That James Franco made like a movie.
Oh shoot! I can't think of it right now.
Is it The Room that it's called, or is
I don't
the
think
James Franco movie called The Room? I can't remember.
I think it's The Room that it's based off of.
Okay. So anyway, one person said it's worse than that. So,
Oh, shoot.
So it's very hard to say, because we've heard just an outpour of love from the people that have been part of the film.
Sure.
But we've heard outside of the film, people have
They bashed it, yeah.
been bashing it to all hell. Mm-hmm. And that's the reason why that's the reason why Warner Brothers in their official statement took away, is they said, we feel the movie would hurt the brand of Batgirl.
Yeah.
So it's one of those films of like, I really was excited to see it. I really wanted to see it. But if it's that bad, I also understand why you would take it away.
Sure.
And the thing is that the one thing that we should also say about this film is only its principal photography was done.
Right.
In terms of editing, they haven't edited a whole much. Mm-hmm. The special effects haven't been done very much. Mm-hmm. It's been shot. It's completed its shooting. They started editing.
I think they had reshoots planned.
And yes, reshoots were planned, but in terms of like, I believe it was only 1 or 2 cuts have been done on this.
Right.
So does the movie exist technically? Yes.
It does.
But in terms of like, if people thought like this is like, it's done, it's completed, why not just like release it now? No, it's not anywhere close to that level of polish yet. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not ready at all, kind. It's barely in the testing phase.
Right. I think also is one of those cases where if they would have kept making the movie and then cancel it, they would have wasted a lot more money.
Correct.
Right now, I think they only lost
$90 million. Yeah, is the number that's being thrown around.
Which $90 million, that's $90 million.
Yeah.
But if they would have kept making it and added visual effects,
that's like 130 million there.
Yeah, so that's if looking at it on a business perspective, I totally get it. Mm-hmm. I feel really bad for the directors and the creatives and the actors and actresses behind this project, because they were so passionate about this project.
They were really
so
passionate for it.
I just don't understand what happened behind the scenes that made it so unbelievably bad. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm struggling with. Was it studio interference? Was it confusion? Because I know Michael Keaton was coming back as Batman. That immediately made me confused. Why is Michael Keaton in this movie and not Ben Affleck with J.K. Simmons? That doesn't make any sense. So I think it was just one of those deals that, again, this film was literally a victim of poor judgment. Mm-hmm. And it goes back to what I started with however long ago when we started this episode. And
again, yes, so that is another thing that we should also bring up too. Technically, Discovery did not make this movie.
No.
This was made by the original old guard Warner Brothers.
Yes, and it was supposed to be an HBO Max exclusive.
Correct. This was not made by the new people there.
No.
So it is within Discovery's right to want to look at everything. And with DC's track record,
I would have done the same thing.
I would have done the same thing. And if they felt that this would not only just hurt the brand of the DC universe itself, but also the Batgirl brand.
Sure.
I like Batgirl.
I do too.
I don't want to see it defaced.
Neither do I.
So if it's that bad to the point it would do that, I don't know if I want to see it either, but it only makes me want to see this movie more.
Just to
see how bad it was.
Like, was it so bad it's good? Like an Adam Sandler type of film? Or
yeah, it's one of those things of where I feel like they just... It's one of the shame things of where I know since it's canceled, it's not going to be like a Snyder Cut thing.
No.
There's going to be no Snyder Cut version of this. This movie is done.
Yeah,
it's in the can.
Yeah.
There's no coming back from it at all.
Which is very unfortunate.
Which is very unfortunate for all the jobs and whatnot created. Mm-hmm. And I wish we could have seen it.
I know they want to work with Leslie Grace going forward and Brendan Fraser going forward. Mm-hmm. But if I'm those two, if they ask me to, if I'm, especially Brendan Fraser, if I was asked to be Firefly in another project, I'm going up to the management and be like, okay, are you going to cancel this project too? Mm-hmm. Do you actually know what you're doing? Because you said you knew what you were doing when you made this movie, and yet here we are, a year later, or however long later, you're still having this problem.
Yep.
So if I'm Leslie Grace and Brendan Fraser, I would go away from this.
Yep.
Like forever.
Yep.
Especially if I'm Brendan Fraser, because he's gone through a whole lot, and this is literally one of a really bad roadblock in his
career.
Yes.
Yeah. But I feel like he's on the up and up.
Yes.
It's not like this project being canceled is going to derail his career moving forward.
Sure.
If it really was as bad as some people are saying is,
mm-hmm.
maybe it's going to help his career a little bit so people don't see what
he does.
He did. But that's the thing. Another thing that in looking at the reviews of the people that have seen it have said, no one specifically mentions the performances.
Nobody mentioned it at all.
It seems like it's more so a script issue.
Yeah.
That it's been said. Mm-hmm. And the look of it also has been said to be looked very cheap on like a budget.
Yeah, they tried to make it more Tim Burton-esque.
Yeah. So
that's hard. That's hard now.
Well, it is, but they also said like just the production value seemed cheap.
Yeah.
So that the script mixed with a cheap production value, I feel like is the reason why it got canceled. Mm-hmm. And again, it's just an ultimate terrible, I guess, sacrifice to the merger.
Correct.
All right. So
here comes the popcorn time.
Here we go, my friends.
Hold on, Zach.
Yeah.
Before we get into this, I told them they need to grab their popcorn, their favorite fountain drink.
Are we doing an intermission?
No, I was going to ask you what your favorite fountain drink is.
Oh, yeah. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby and grab a good, nice, big cup of either Sprite or ginger ale.
Oh, God.
I know. You always roll your eyes whenever I get my ginger ale, but I love my ginger ale.
Oh, God. Oh,
what about you? What's your favorite fountain drink?
I'm a Coca-Cola guy.
Coca-Cola? That's a good one.
You know, I don't mind Pepsi, but no theater chain down here has Pepsi. Yeah. But the old theater chain from back home that I went to had tons of Pepsi.
Pepsi?
Mountain Dew. The Orpheum Theater in Hillsborough. If you listen to this, I love you guys. Keep up the good work. Love you.
Yeah. What about your favorite concession?
I'm a Skittles guy.
You're a Skittles guy?
Yeah,
okay.
I love Skittles.
For sure.
And a hot dog.
And a hot dog, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, hot dogs are my favorite, personally. Mm-hmm. Especially, it's one of the more cheaper ones that I can grab. I'm not a huge popcorn person.
Neither am I.
Yet at the same time, my mouth does kind of like salivate a little bit whenever I smell the popcorn. Yeah. I'm always like, ooh, that.
I always love it when we get those ice cream.
Yeah, usually getting like an ice.
Yeah.
Well, because so originally when I came down from Illinois to Florida, so we had an AMC back at home. I liked mozzarella sticks.
Really?
And AMC served mozzarella sticks.
Nice.
Those then got canceled.
Butts.
So I came down here, and then they had a Haagen-Dazs like hard scooped ice cream.
Yep, I remember
in their AMC at that time, and that's what I actually got for a while, and then that went away. So I was like, oh. However, now that the Salt and Straw is there, I'm wondering. The thing is that AMC kind of in Disney Springs enforces their no outside food and beverage policy, but sometimes they don't. Mm-hmm. So
I've seen people walk in with food.
Yeah, I've seen people walk in with food and they say nothing. So I don't know.
And now we're back.
But yeah, so thanks for the little bit of intermission.
Yeah, I hope you grabbed your favorite fountain drink.
Popcorn or Skittles or ice cream.
M&M's.
Yep, or Reese's Pieces if you're an ET fan.
Yeah, and because y'all better get ready.
Yeah.
If you think this first section was long,
strap in.
Yeah.
And
hold on.
Because thanks for killing my chair. But so
it's light on in here.
Yeah, unfortunately my lights are dead right now. But but
it
it's
sets
fine.
the tone.
I was about to say DC movies are dark and brooding and have no color, so why should our room have dark, brooding, and no color?
I'm Batman.
But so we kind of went into a bit of the timeline admittedly before, but we'll go ahead and recap those little bits first. So back in 2013, Man of Steel comes out, directed
2011 with Green Lantern.
2011 with Green Lantern, but Green Lantern happened and everyone was like, let's all forget that. So 2013 comes, Man of Steel opens.
It made a lot of money.
Yeah. It did pretty well.
Almost $700 million.
However, it was controversial because a lot of people were like, this isn't hopeful.
He killed
Zod. Zod was weird. A lot of, and they said it was just so dark and brooding. I personally loved it. I thought it was a very really nice take on Superman. Putting him, to be honest, in our culture, and I feel like it's what our culture would do is look at every single little thing that Superman would do.
And hey, he grew up in Kansas. He grew up in our neck of the woods in the Midwest. So yeah,
good Midwest boy.
Yeah, good for you, Clark Kent.
But I felt like it was a really well done, like dissection of Superman, and it was the most Superman heavy movie I feel like.
Right.
While also looking at Clark as well.
See, I didn't see this in theaters, sad to say, because I'm trying to think, because Iron Man 3 had came out.
Yep.
And
you didn't have AMC A-list at the time.
I didn't know.
No one did.
I think that was my first summer of college. So I think I was going through my stage of like, I don't want to go to class. I don't want to do anything. That's when I started playing a bunch of video games.
That's fair.
But I got this on Blu-ray in that Christmas.
Okay.
And I watched it, and I was just like completely just blown away. I'm like, this movie got mixed reviews?
Yeah.
I am really enjoying this film. And I really wanted to see a second one.
Krypton so much on that one.
I loved Krypton.
Krypton was so amazing and fleshed out in that first part. I loved that. And then I thought Henry Cavill was a really fantastic Superman, and Clark and Kal-El. No, you didn't like him? I thought he was great.
He's so stiff, and I just loved Christopher Reeve as Superman, and I enjoyed Brandon Routh. But
Brandon Routh was a person of circumstance, I feel like. But his movie was meh.
See, my grandpa loves Superman. He got me hooked on Superman back in the 90s. And I talked to him about it, and he wanted to see it, but then he heard about Henry Cavill. And he's like, I'm not seeing that movie.
I loved him as Superman. I think he's one of the best.
I think he's okay. I will give him credit.
Okay. But so that went out and and got mixed reviews, and then
made a ton of money.
And then it was announced at the following Comic-Con,
which is literally the next month.
That Batman vs. Superman's coming out.
And like we said earlier, that I've watched the footage of that announcement. I mean, the whole roof and all Hall H just would have been gone.
Yeah.
I mean,
no Batman announced not who was playing Batman. It was literally nothing. Mm-hmm. And then a month later,
Ben Affleck
is announced, along with the tag Dawn of Justice.
Yeah.
To which a whole bunch of people all cried out, "Oh no." See, I was I will reiterate, I was very for Ben Affleck. I thought that this was a genius choice. Mm-hmm. I was really excited to see it. But the thing that I was concerned about was the Dawn of Justice tag added.
Okay.
I was like, no, I see what you're doing with that. Mm-hmm. You are trying to eat your cake and have your ice cream too. Marvel we literally just spent an entire phase of Marvel having one character introduction after another character introduction after another character introduction after another character introduction to then finally have them
Avengers,
come together in Avengers.
And we just started phase 2.
Yep. And you are trying to, with Dawn of Justice, are you going to try and introduce everybody all at once? And by it, they did.
And they delayed it because it's supposed to come out 2 months after Age of Ultron.
Yep.
And they delayed it to March of 2016.
Yep.
It was supposed to come out the same day as Civil War, but they said, probably not a good idea.
Let's move it a little forward.
Yeah. And then came out on Easter, which kudos to them.
Yeah. But if they would have focused on just introducing Batman and focusing on the conflict, that movie could have been so much better.
Yeah.
But DC was like Zack
Warner
Snyder
Brothers,
and Warner Brothers went, you got to set up an entire cinematic universe in one movie. You got to do it. Mm-hmm. To which he did. And because he could only do it in one movie.
Yeah. And
it kind of fell apart.
Did you ever see... have you looked at old photos of Zack Snyder before making Man of Steel and Batman?
Oh, he didn't have gray hair, and now he does.
I mean, he literally...
It looks like he went through a presidency.
I know. And you feel for the guy.
Well, and then we later... So we'll kind of get into kind of the reason why, because I feel like some troubles kind of started probably around him making Batman versus Superman, which we'll kind of get into later.
There's that 6-year board meeting.
Yes. So we have the 6-year board meeting, which we get our first picture of Ben Affleck and the Batmobile
and the suit. He looked amazing.
Amazing. Best still I have ever seen of any movie ever, personally. That is still to this day, the black and white Batman and the Batmobile reveal is still the best reveal I think has ever happened from DC. Mm-hmm. But that board meeting was the stupidest board meeting ever.
Because they announced Aquaman, they announced The Flash.
Correct.
Wonder Woman, and Suicide Squad.
Yep.
And there were other dates.
They announced a multitude of dates with no titles.
And
like
2 Justice Leagues.
They did, yeah. They announced Justice League Part 1 and Part 2. But they announced like 7, 8 other dates with no titles attached to them.
So dumb.
And this is coming off of the big Phase 2 and Phase 3 Marvel press event that Marvel did, where Kevin Feige was literally booked out a theater, invited all the press area, like all around, and basically did like their own like small
Comic-Con, yeah.
And basically was like, all right, y'all, here's our timeline.
And that's what
boom, boom, boom. Not only dates, but titles. Title cards, directors announcements, casting announcements, all at once.
They announced a few things. I think with Suicide Squad, they announced Jared Leto and Margot Robbie.
Yeah, but all of this board meeting, this 6-year plan, was all in closed doors.
Yes.
No cameras.
No.
All in just like almost like the best I can describe it is like a quarterly earnings call.
Yeah, that's literally the best explanation
of where it was literally just a board of directors and it was just a report. Yeah. Like all it was that came out of it was just like a board meeting report. Mm-hmm. And that's where we got all of our information from. And we're like,
Do what now?
Really?
Yeah.
That's how we got it?
I remember
Okay.
I was living on my own at the time, and because it came about a week after the Marvel announcements.
Yep.
It was either that or before. And I came home from work from Dairy Queen. I know your opinion of Florida's Dairy Queen game.
Shortage. It's a shortage, damn it.
Pretty much. And I literally look at my Facebook page, and I'm looking at all these, and I'm like, okay, so I see Batman v Superman. I see
Wonder Woman.
I see Flash. I see Suicide Squad, Aquaman. And I'm not excited to see any of these films. Yeah. I'm not.
Well, and there's no title cards. There's no nothing. We basically, to me, they're only a title and a date.
Yes.
And a title and a date can be canceled or changed.
And yet here we are, literally 8 years later. No Suicide Squad. No
We've
Flash.
gotten two. We've gotten two Suicide Squads, sir.
Yeah. Both pretty forgetful. First one was
very forgetful. Second one was better, but it was interesting.
But
it was better.
No Flash. No Flash.
That's been in production hell forever. But we'll get to that.
No Justice League 2.
But again, it was announced back in 2014. The Flash.
The fall, yeah.
And it's now coming out in 2023.
Almost 10 years later. And don't forget about Shazam and Black Adam.
But those were not...
Black
Adam was announced around... We forgot to put this on the timeline. Black Adam was announced before this.
Yeah, I remember.
And we're only getting it now.
Yeah. That's because I feel like Dwayne Johnson's
But again,
schedule,
that was Dwayne Johnson's schedule, and I feel like they just were trying to work on it and just kept on getting rewrite.
So, this board meeting
happens. Then Batman versus Superman comes out.
Literally a year and a half goes by.
A year and a half of nothing, and it comes out, and it is poorly received.
I mean, it was bad.
It was bashed. It was memed.
And the sad thing is, it made a ton of money opening weekend.
Yep.
It should have made a lot more than what it did.
But then my personal favorite of all Marvel movies came out, which was Civil War. And... Again, it had a lot going for me on that one. I was personally his personal target audience because Civil War is my favorite comic book ever written.
Sure.
And you have the MCU basically in their prime, in their stride.
Sure.
Going. So, to me, that's pretty much when, in my opinion, that's when Marvel was at its peak. Mm-hmm. It's kind of upped and down from there, but peak for me was Civil War.
Hey, don't spoil another episode that we got coming next month.
Yeah, but yeah, so Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice is poorly received. Immediately after,
Suicide
Squad announces rewrites,
and it wasn't
and reshoots.
Well, and remember, Suicide Squad was supposed to come out in August.
Yep.
I remember David Ayer talked later that he wanted it delayed.
Yeah.
But they couldn't because Wonder Woman was coming out the next June.
Yeah.
And it was ready. And they said there wasn't going to be any rewrites with Wonder Woman because that was going to be a more hopeful anyway.
Yep.
Because Zack Snyder even said they were going to be more hopeful in tone later on.
Yep.
Which you see that later. But... looking at Suicide Squad now, and I remember seeing that in August, and you could feel the rewrites, you could feel the reshoots, and it was literally, I came out of that movie, I'm like, that wasn't even a movie. That was literally just a bunch of TV shows mixed into one big 2-hour plot.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, I remember watching the trailers for it as it was kind of going.
Right.
And I was like, these trailers are good, but because of the music.
Yeah.
Like, they're really well cut to the music.
But
it doesn't look good.
Right.
And my friend at the time, who was I don't know if he is or anymore, was a huge DC fan. He was like, no, this is going to be the best movie ever. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be wonderful. And I was like, dude, there's red flags all over. I'm seeing. I don't know if this is going to be good or not. And it happens, and we see it, and y'all,
it was even worse. Yeah.
Woof. initially, like the beginning of the movie, I was for it. I was kind of getting into it, but as the movie progressed, it just no.
Yeah.
It really flatlined.
The Wonder Woman comes out and it was great.
So yeah, well hold on. We're getting there. We're getting there. Wonder Woman is coming, but a little bit before.
I can't see there.
Yeah, a little bit before then. So they're shooting. They begin shooting
Justice League.
And it's announced that Zack Snyder has to step away
due
to a family crisis.
Yeah, and
we won't.
No,
out of respect for
Zack
Snyder's family, we won't say exactly what happened.
It's very sad,
but it's very sad, and I believe some of those issues were happening as well during Batman versus Superman.
Oh, it was.
So circumstances arose where he had to step away, and Joss Whedon decides to take over.
And I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. Was the family crisis? But I think Warner Brothers was pushing him to leave as well.
Yep.
But that was the straw.
Yeah.
That broke the camel's back.
Yep. And it does. And when he does it, he waits a couple of months and then Joss Whedon announces that we are going to do some rewrites and reshoots because it was in the middle of production.
Sure.
So we're going to add some reshoots and changes.
Sure.
Around the same time, The Flash announces we are also going to delay, and we also are going to be changing our director. Which
like
is
3 times.
Yeah, it happened about as situations continue. The Flash's director changed multiple times. We then have Wonder Woman come out.
And it was great.
And it was critically and audience praised. Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot did... Patty Jenkins did wonderfully. Gal Gadot did okay.
Yeah. They announced the
Chris
sequel.
Pine did really, really well.
Yeah.
They announced the sequel right away. It's the first big hit of... actually huge hit.
Sure.
Of DC. That's after Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, and Suicide Squad. That's your 4th movie in. You finally get a hit.
Yeah.
Man of Steel should have been the first one, but
sure.
But 4th movie in.
Enough of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Then we wait a little bit.
Around
Thanksgiving, Justice League finally premieres.
I didn't even see it in theaters.
Holy shit.
I didn't even see it in theaters.
Holy shit. We thought Suicide Squad was terrible. This was a Frankenstein of utter shit proportions. I have never been so disappointed in a movie, genuinely, at that point.
You run, because I didn't see it in theaters. I saw it when it came on DVD.
Okay.
I didn't buy the DVD, but I rented it.
Sure.
Because I wouldn't...
Money saved and money well spent in terms of that.
Can you run... Now, my ex-girlfriend loves the movie. And that's
why she's your ex.
If she listens to this, she's going to be pissed.
It's okay. Everyone's entitled to their opinion.
Yeah, I know.
Even if it's wrong.
I remember I went to her place. We were going to watch Endgame. And I looked through her DVDs because, I love films. And I saw she had Justice League. And I literally take it and I go, why the fuck do you have this piece of shit movie? And she goes, what? It's a good movie. I'm like... Absolutely not. We are never watching this together. Do you hear me? And she goes, no, we are not watching this. So bad. Can you go through? So you get your tickets for Justice League.
Yep.
Can you do a little rundown of what happened?
What happened in Justice League? I'm not
like in your. So you got your tickets and you go see the movie. Yep. What's going through your mind?
Yay! Justice League, Joss Whedon, Avengers in the DC universe.
Zack Snyder.
Yeah. Oh.
You go in.
Oh no! No! And
you left.
I didn't walk out.
Really?
I should have. I didn't.
You almost walked out.
I've only walked out of one movie ever.
Which was...
It wasn't the water horse. That one I should have walked out on. That's the worst cinematic experience I've ever had. The water horse was not it. My one film that I walked out of wasn't my decision. Was Epic Movie.
I've never seen that.
That was it's one of those like really stupid satire films.
Yeah. Knows its audience. So.
Knows its audience. It's because me, my dad, and my sister saw the trailer for that, and we thought it was hilarious. We thought the trailer was really, really hilarious. It was rated PG-13.
Sure.
Or at least I think it was rated PG-13.
I think it was PG-13.
Or it might have been rated R. Either way, it rides that line very, very heavily from what I saw. But we were in the theater. My mom was with us, and I think we got about halfway through it to the point where my mom said, "We're going." And we stood up and left the theater. The jokes were okay. Some of them were funny.
Sure.
But a lot of them I didn't understand until later.
Sure.
I haven't seen the movie since, so I can't really give a good grade on it. But That's the only movie I've ever walked out of, and it really wasn't my decision.
I've only walked out of one, and it was a Liam Neeson film, but that was because I had a terrible migraine and I needed to go home.
That's fair.
However, I've been driven out of a theater, but this was a drive-in one because my younger brother, I think I told you this when he got us in trouble for running around like a chicken.
Oh, yeah.
This was the drive-in, and he was a 1-year-old, and we were seeing cats and dogs at the drive-in.
Oh, uh-huh.
And he was crying the entire time.
Gotcha.
So my mom's like, I can't take this anymore, and we left. And it was right before the climax of Cats and Dogs.
Oh, no.
I was so pissed. And then she was driving so quickly,
But Cats and Dogs isn't even that good of a movie.
Yeah, well, my mom was driving so fast to get him home, she rear-ended somebody outside.
Jeez. All right, but yeah, no, Justice League bombs.
Again, I didn't even see it.
It was terrible. And with it, DC then announces, "Hey, we're gonna step back for a bit, and we are gonna look more into doing solo films."
Mm-hmm.
And they announce a specific film, a little film called Joker.
But which Joker?
Well, it definitely wasn't Jared Leto's Joker.
Well, it's funny because, like, around that time, it was a little bit before, they kept announcing other random projects.
Like the Blue Beetle movie was announced around the time.
I think they also announced the Birds of Prey finally got announced.
Yep, Birds of Prey got announced.
They did announce a Jared Leto and Harley Quinn film.
You're right, they did.
But then they announced this, and Jared Leto got pissed.
Yeah.
And that was around the same time Ben Affleck was starting to finally write the script for Batman.
Yep.
And then it goes into our next topic.
Well, and here's the thing. Ben Affleck was announced to be doing the Batman like a little bit before Justice League.
Sure.
And at Comic-Con, that's when he was saying, "Yep, I'm still going to be Batman after Justice League and whatnot." But then a little bit after, it's announced that Ben Affleck would be just starring in the Batman, not directing or doing scripts, just starring.
I think he was going to produce.
He was also going to be producer as well, but he was going to take a step back, and they were going to look for a new director, which they then chose Matt Reeves to direct. And then shortly after that,
Matt Reeves
started saying, "Yeah, this is going to be a little bit different of a Batman." And
he started bringing up somebody in his earlier career.
And people started going, well, "What do you mean?"
We have Ben Affleck, yeah.
And then Ben Affleck officially announces, "Hey, I'm gonna be stepping away from the role."
Which, I mean, I'm gonna bring up the timeline for Ben Affleck. So Ben Affleck has had severe alcohol substance
abuse. Yep.
It's caused him to be divorced from Jennifer Gardner.
Yep.
He's had some relationship issues. I know he finally got back together with Lopez.
Yep.
But that's besides the point. He was sober when he became Batman.
Yeah.
And he said he had a great time on Batman v Superman because he loved what Zack did. He loved how collaborative he was.
Yep.
But then
Justice League.
And you could really tell, judging from Justice League and Zack Snyder's Justice League, which we will get to later.
Yep.
I mean, he literally looked during the theatrical edition of Justice League. He looked like he did all his lines while he was flat out drunk.
Yeah.
Because he literally, and a friend even said that, like
Matt Damon did.
It was Matt Damon.
Matt Damon told him.
It said, like, if you do another Batman, you're going to drink yourself to death because
die.
Of what Warner Brothers is doing to you.
Yep.
So I got to give Ben Affleck a ton of credit for taking care of himself.
Yep, and stepping away.
His kids, because he said that he would come back from set of Justice League and pass out on the couch with literally a big humongous bottle of like Jack Daniels.
Yep.
And you kudos to him for checking himself into treatment.
Yep.
Enough. And just, it's really a shame what happened to Ben Affleck.
Yeah.
I'm glad he's starting to do more cameos now.
Yep. And I don't think he will ever step back into the role because of what it did to him.
Right.
But it is nice to see him come back for some cameos and whatnot.
Sure.
Because again,
he loves the character.
And that's the thing that I feel really, really bad for Ben Affleck. A lot of people extremely loved his take. When criticisms were coming out about Batman versus Superman, they were more so about the shoehorning of the Justice League, a lot of the other things. But in terms of Batman, they were actually praising Ben Affleck, besides the fact that Ben Affleck was killing people in the movie.
Did you hear what he was going to do with his solo film?
He was going to go to Arkham.
And that would have been intense.
Seeing a rogues gallery written by Ben Affleck would have been amazing.
Well, and he would have taken inspiration from the Arkham games. That would have been, I mean, I can't even comprehend how good this movie would have been. I think it would have been R-rated.
I think it could have been Oscar worthy too.
I will agree. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that was the best film that will never be made.
Yeah,
I'm going to call it. And I'm not saying superhero. I'm talking best film.
And I feel like that's the only way Ben Affleck would ever truly come back to the role.
Right.
Is if he were to direct, write, and star Batman under this new management.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's because that way he's able to control his situation, control his surroundings, maybe have his buddy Matt Damon there as a cameo.
He's going to need somebody
and have
to help.
support systems around him to do it. But again, it will never happen.
You know how stressful making those films are. He was going to...
It just won't happen.
Yeah, he would have immediately been like, "Where I need a drink." Yep. Like that's just how it goes.
Yep.
So after that happens, a little friend by the name of James Gunn.
Yes. So
he gets fired.
So tweets that were 10 years old, come out of like revenge canceling.
Yeah.
Come out about James Gunn. And within 24 hours of the tweets resurfacing, Alan Horn fires James Gunn from Marvel.
Which I know a lot of people give Disney a bad rap, but Disney was stuck in a very bad place there.
They were, but I feel like they were too quick.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. It's very hard to run a company and know what to do in certain situations.
Sure.
And Disney has always been a very reactionary company.
Sure.
Always has been, and I feel like always will be for now because of how big they are. Usually when I say reactionary, I usually mean they wait a little too long to react.
Yeah,
I feel like Alan Horn was like, "No, we always wait too long. We need to nip this in the bud now."
Yeah,
and fired him within 24 hours.
Then he goes
to which
DC,
Gunn handled it really well.
Yeah, he did.
He said, "I understand Disney's decision. I am grateful for the time and the work that I've worked with everybody on. I thank for everybody's support. And I look forward to the new projects that I will continue to do, and maybe a relationship again with Disney if the time allows later in my career.
Which he does. Yay. Yeah.
But as that's happening, every single studio ever created goes to James Gunn's door and is like, hey, want to do this? Hey, want to do this? You get creative freedom on this. Do this, please. Please do this. Please do this. And he basically gets a bunch of these different jobs.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
But Warner Brothers very smartly goes up to him and says, hey, we need your help.
You have the Suicide Squad.
You can choose whatever project you want.
Oh, I remember that, yeah.
Whatever creative freedom you want. Do what you want, and we will sign the check. To which, in James Gunn fashion, he goes, can I do Suicide Squad? And Warner Brothers was like,
really?
Sure.
That's when they didn't announce the Suicide Squad sequel.
Correct.
Because David Ayer didn't want to do it.
Correct.
He wanted to do a Deadshot film.
Yeah.
I remember. But because he worked with Will Smith with the Bright film on Netflix. But then he came in to take over the Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
And that's when really, I mean, Marvel and DC fanboys were going at it with each other. And I loved that because, like, it really, because everybody knows, like, this is just purely fan stuff.
Yeah.
But, like, when you have fans like you and I that love both, we're like, cool, we're going to watch both of them. We're going to enjoy both of them. But, like, people are just purely DC and people are just Marvel.
Yep.
They were going at it. People saying, like, there's no way it's going to be as good as Guardians. And the DC are like, it's going to be 10 times better than Guardians. You shut your trap.
Yep. And it was such an interesting time. And we later learned that that Alan Horn, Kevin Feige, Bob Iger, and James Gunn were actually in talks the entire time.
Sure.
And then they eventually made up after things went over and whatnot, so that Gunn could finish Guardians.
Sure.
Once he's finished, he's now done with Marvel. And I feel like that was a James Gunn decision.
Sure.
To be done with it after that.
Yeah,
I feel like if this never happened, Warner Brothers would not have Suicide Squad and would not have Gunn for as long as they do, and he would be with Marvel a lot deeper and closer. But because of a
what happened,
very quick decision, we DC now has James Gunn with them.
Yeah.
Which, great. Phenomenal.
Great.
Good to have a tool in your belt like that.
Absolutely.
So a little bit goes by, things are going, and Aquaman's on the horizon. And boy, does it hit.
$1 billion.
$1 billion it hits.
I didn't see that in theaters, but I watched it later and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It again, after quite a few misses.
Yeah.
They get a hit and a big one at that. And because James Wan was the director of Aquaman, DC saw this $1 billion hit and they're like, James Wan's going to direct a spin-off of The Deep for Aquaman. The Trench. And they're going to do a spin-off of just Atlantis, period. And they're going to do a spin. Like, they went for it. They were like, oh, Jesus, DC, you are really putting out, aren't you?
They did announce a sequel. They
were like, oh my God, we have life. We need to.
Yeah. Thank you, James Wan.
I'm not gonna lie. If it were not for Aquaman, I think if Aquaman would have been yet another loss, I think the DCEU would have died.
Oh, I agree. Well, and then right after that, you had Shazam,
which
didn't make a lot of money.
It's personally my favorite movie of the DCEU.
Oh, I very much enjoyed it.
It's my number 2. Man of Steel is my number 1. I know you don't like it, but Shazam is a very close second. Shazam is a very close second. I thoroughly enjoy not only like the characters, but the family dynamic that Shazam has. I'm always a sucker for a Christmas movie.
Sure.
And it's a very, very big Christmas movie.
And come on, Zachary Levi drinking a 12-pack of soda. I mean, come on. What kid back when they were in high school didn't want to grab a big pack of Mountain Dew and drink all the Mountain Dew before they got home?
Well, and it really is such a good, like, what if a kid was in an adult body? It's very big, like,
sure.
But it's really it's big in a superhero universe. It's really it's so fun.
Then after Shazam, Robert Pattinson
is announced as Batman.
Which I'm going to take this one.
Yeah, go ahead.
So immediately after I found out he was cast, I got so excited. Because Robert Pattinson, I know everyone's like, oh, it's just Cedric Diggory or it's just Edward Cullen. No, it's not. It's the guy from The Lighthouse. It's the guy from Tenet, which hadn't been made yet. Yep. It's the guy from these really good indie films that knows a ton about actual acting, who's gonna put on the bat suit.
Yep.
And I couldn't help but be excited. And I'm just like, I want this movie now. And with because he's not old. He's like 35, I think.
Yeah,
so
he's really young for a Batman.
He can still play Batman for another 10 years.
Ooh, yeah.
So I wanted it so badly because Robert Pattinson, I couldn't think of anybody else better to don the cape and cowl. Yep. And we'll get to it later, but if you heard the Batman review.
What a plug, sir. Smooth. Very smooth.
Yeah, thank you so much. But yeah, and then something else happens Batman related in 2019.
Yeah, the Joker comes out to high critical praise. So I
gotta say, when Joker came out and they announced that a lot of people were dressed as clowns and they were thinking about causing some really big problems.
Yep.
I went to see Joker on opening night. My girlfriend at the time was working and I wanted her to go see it with me, but she was working and she couldn't go see it. And she didn't want to see it anyway because
of all the clown madness.
That, and she heard that it was going to be a little scary and she doesn't do scary.
Okay, for sure.
And she also was a little timid about the fact that it's Joaquin Phoenix.
That's fair.
I went into that theater and you know how I prefer the aisle seat?
Yep.
That is the only time I regret getting an aisle seat because an hour into the movie, two people wearing hoods come into the theater and were slowly walking up my aisle, and they had their hands in their pockets. And it was literally, I was so scared. And there wasn't that many people in the theater, and I literally froze. I'm like, I'm gonna fucking die seeing a movie. And it's Joker. And everybody, and they warned me, the news warned me. I'm like, I'm gonna die.
Yep.
And I'm like, this guy's gonna kill me. He has a gun. And I was so scared. And he kept walking and he exited. And I turned and the family behind me also turned. And we all looked at each other and we're like, did that just happen? And they're like, yeah. And one of them asked me like, are you okay? I'm like, I'm okay. Are you guys okay? And somebody said, I'm a little shaken up. I'm like, I am too. So, but yeah.
Yeah. That's a little terrifying.
Yeah, it was scary.
My viewing of that was not that bad.
But I walked out of that theater. Literally, you know how when you see Infinity War, you see Endgame, you have feelings.
Yeah.
Infinity War, you felt literally like destroyed.
Yeah.
And Endgame, you felt so happy but sad because you know Tony Stark died. I walked out of that theater. I'm just like, fuck. I literally was just like. That was so mentally draining.
Yeah.
In a good way.
In a good way.
And I texted my girlfriend on the way home, don't text and drive, kids. And I said, I literally don't know what to say about this movie. And she goes, was it bad? No, it was excellent. But what happened? A lot of stuff happened.
A lot.
And I even said, I'm like, I think I may need a psychiatrist after this. And she goes, maybe you should put on a Disney movie when you go home. I'm like, yeah.
How about Inside Out.
No, I think
Get yourself destroyed a little bit more.
No, I came home. I went home. I'm like, no, I'm gonna go to bed.
Yeah.
Good night.
Yeah. No, I did not have that tumultuous of a viewing experience for.
Yeah, but
I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's by far the most artsy superhero movie ever done.
Sure.
But it's a work of art.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's a movie that so many people was like, we don't need a Joker movie. We don't need an origin story of the Joker. To which I agreed. I was like, I don't need an origin story of the Joker.
I kind of wanted it though.
Well, because to me, I like from The Dark Knight, I like how the Joker is just a force of nature that just shows up. You don't need an origin story. And if you get an origin story, you kind of water him down. But they treated it really well in Joker to the point of making him an unreliable narrator.
Well, and it goes back to the Killing Joke about how, because at the end, you don't know if the story that you see is true.
True, yep.
You think, because Joker always says, if I prefer to have a backstory or a past, I prefer it to be multiple choice. So it kind of goes back to that, like, what we just saw, it may not be the real Joker. It may be something else. It could be the lead up to the Joker. Nobody knows. And we may not find out until something else that happens later on, which I will discuss later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
with somebody.
Whew. Yeah. Joker. Really, really great.
Loved it.
All right. So Joker comes out at the end of 2019, like November, December-ish.
Then COVID.
Then we have our bombshell of a human travesty happen, which is COVID-19.
The panini.
It comes out.
Delays everything.
It delays everything. The world is at a stop, as everything would. But as we alluded to before, HBO Max does the absolute shit-tastic idea of it's gonna do everything day and date with cinematic reveals. Stupidest decision ever in Hollywood. Ever. Period. Amen.
Right.
They wanted to do a Nazi propaganda, like go Nazis, when the Nazis starting to come to power in Hollywood. This was dumber than that.
Yeah. Because
at least at that time, like people thought not a lot was known about the Nazis at the time. So like I could since there wasn't a lot known, I could see why. But then as things, started to come out about the Nazis, people were like, oh no. And they had the good sense to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah. They didn't stop with HBO Max for a while.
No, they kept going.
They kept going and even doubled down for a while.
They almost were going to do a 2022, I think. They were thinking.
They were thinking.
I'm glad they stopped thinking about it.
So, but with that announcement, they also announced that there was going to be a plethora of DC shows and movies coming to HBO Max, including
Penguin,
an Arkham show,
Harley Quinn,
which we have heard nothing about that Arkham show. I'm really excited to see what they do with that. The animated Harley Quinn was going to come to HBO Max.
Pennyworth was the Epic's Alfred Pennyworth show was coming to HBO Max.
Yep, J.J. Abrams also signed a big deal with Bad Robot, his production company, Bad Robot.
Time out. Speaking of J.J. Abrams, what the fuck is he doing with that Superman project?
Yeah, really. I genuinely don't know what's going on.
They announced it in the summer of 2020, and there's nothing.
We've heard nothing about his project.
There's a writer, but I don't even know if he's even started that script.
I don't know.
There's no director. Someone said Michael B. Jordan was cast, but then he turned that down and wants to make something else.
Yep.
But
I think he's steering more into the Creed franchise.
Yeah, I think so.
That's what he's probably doing. Mm-hmm. But
because he's directing 3, I think.
Yep. So, and then a little movie known as Batgirl is also announced.
Yeah.
But all those projects are announced, and it's also with the whole day and date release and all these things being announced. Denis Villeneuve, who directed Dune, which is one of Warner Brothers' biggest projects coming out in the near future, wrote an expose in Variety, flat out calling out Warner Brothers and saying, after Dune 2, not working with you guys ever again.
And neither is Chris Nolan.
And Chris Nolan then did a similar thing in The Hollywood Reporter, took out an entire main topic page and said, yeah, this is not, I'm never working with Warner Brothers again.
Oppenheimer's coming out for Universal.
Yep.
Which, kudos to Universal for letting him make that project, because that movie looks big. Yeah. I mean, that's
going to be a IMAX only, or IMAX or Dolby Cinema, or like big screen, big sound movie only for me.
If it's not in my top 3 by next year, it's already in my top 5. Mm-hmm. I mean, that movie looks big and it looks awesome. Yeah. Especially with that cast. Mm-hmm. Oh, man. But that's for another time.
That is another video. But
video? You just think that...
Oh, did I accidentally let something out?
We're shopping for vlogging cameras.
Did I accidentally announce something that we're looking into? I think I just did.
Go ahead, Zach.
It's fine. No, we can continue on. It's fine. We'll brush past it.
You've already.
No, it's fine. Let's brush past it. We're going on. That's another video. That's another video. Never mind. Anyway, that's another story. Never mind. Anyway, it will be alluded to, and we will announce it later. We are focusing on DC right now. We will talk about our podcast / maybe something else later.
I'm just glad you didn't announce something else.
Yes. So, and now to go from that to our next topic.
Oh, fuck.
We get to talk about Ezra Miller. Hey. All right. So
they have done some stuff.
So the start of their troubles started in the pandemic back in April.
So if you're wondering, Ezra Miller's pronouns are
they them. There. Please refer to them as they them. Now Ezra Miller, a video was leaked of them at a bar, obviously drunk.
I mean, they were wasted. I'm pretty sure.
But they took a woman by their throat and slammed them into the ground. Yeah. Not like, oh, she was pushed. No, flat out grabbed him by the throat, lifted her up, and slammed her to the ground.
In front of somebody recording.
In front of someone recording, because they were already acting very belligerent before then.
Yep.
How did Warner Brothers decide to respond to that?
Nothing. I didn't hear anything.
Silence.
I didn't hear anything.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely nothing was said.
I think why was because right after they announced the Snyder Cut for HBO Max.
Yep.
And they wanted Ezra Miller to do some extra shooting for that cut.
Correct. So strategic, quote unquote, strategically, I feel like, because released the Snyder Cut had been a hashtag for a while.
Yeah, it was about 2 years. Yeah.
But with the idea of HBO Max, a lot of people were like, you want me to sign up for HBO Max? Release the Snyder Cut on HBO Max. Mm-hmm. I feel like the Ezra Miller situation forced their hand a little bit.
Yes.
In order to make the bad press go away, Snyder Cut is coming to HBO Max.
Well, and the way that they announced it was so lame. Like, it was literally... So, Zack Snyder, leading up to the cut announcement, he had 2 watch parties.
Yep.
One for Batman v Superman, where he watched the whole movie, he would take notes, and he would let the audience ask him questions and what was going through his mind while making the film.
Just a fun 2020 way to pass by time.
Kind of Q&A, because this was during the pandemic. I love his theater setup, too. Loved it. And I love that he was watching it by himself, nobody else. He was literally talking to us as fans.
Yeah.
And then he had... This time it was different.
Yeah.
He had a Man of Steel watch party, but over Zoom.
Yep.
And Henry Cavill showed up and watched the film with him.
Yep.
And then Zach was like, well, that's I'm done, but you guys look like you want something else. And Henry Cavill was like, go ahead, Zach, announce it. And then there's the title card, Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Yep.
Everybody went crazy. And then I looked at it. I'm like, cool, but Warner Brothers just seemed like they didn't care.
They didn't market it at all.
And I was so sad.
Yeah.
Because I was so excited for that.
Yep. The prodigal son.
I know. And then this is when I get pissed.
This is where you get pissed?
I've been angry, but this is when I get really pissed. Because if there's... Ray Fisher has accusations of Joss Whedon's bad behavior on the set of Justice League. If there's anything that I hate more... is when somebody in Joss Whedon's leadership power, when they use that to bully people.
Yeah.
That I will not stand for.
Yep.
And that's bad.
Yep. And it comes out that Ray Fisher was basically relegated. Joss Whedon basically cut everything about Cyborg out pretty much.
Yeah.
And he basically said, your character isn't worth a damn. Cyborg is not important to the Justice League at all.
Which is so sad.
And we are only gonna, because you are cast in, because Cyborg is part of the Justice League, you are just going to be there.
And the way he bullied Gal Gadot too, almost wanted her to do a sex
scene
with Ezra Miller.
Yep.
Which
again, for someone who evidently has had on the books that who actively wanted a Wonder Woman movie, and then was like, my Wonder Woman script is so good, and was like so confident in his Wonder Woman movie that he released the full script of what his Wonder Woman movie would be, and it was dog shit.
Yeah. Well, and then he would talk bad about Patty Jenkins too.
So so Joss Whedon basically got absolutely destroyed because of everything that, not only because of how bad Justice League was, but because of his conduct.
Yeah.
That he did at and it all came together in 2020.
They finally did an investigation.
Yep, and they concluded Joss Whedon was at the brunt of it.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think their handling of it was so bad.
Yeah, it was just no.
They did not apologize to any of the actors.
Yep.
Didn't apologize to Ben Affleck, who literally almost drank himself to death.
Yep.
Gal Gadot, who was body shamed pretty much.
Yep.
Ray Fisher, who was pretty much the brunt end of racist jokes. And also, you forced your hand with literally one of the biggest projects that could have made you almost back up near Marvel's area of expertise. If Justice League was good, that movie would have made a shit ton of money.
Yep.
And it could have... And the fact of the matter is, the fact that there was a chance of seeing Darkseid in a 2, that would have been incredible. But now that has literally gone down the shitter because of Warner Brothers' misconduct of this.
Of allowing
Joss
to do this.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, little bit spike up in positivity after all that absolute shit went down. Flash finally looked like it was starting to move forward.
Yeah, because it was the It director.
Correct.
I can't think of his name.
Yeah, I can't think of his name either. But they had a director. They had been working on a script, and they announced at their big DC fandom event, Michael Keaton is coming back to put on the cowl for the Flash.
Oh, that got me so excited.
Again,
love it.
He's not my favorite, but it put a smile on my face.
Shut your face.
It did put a smile on my face to know that he was coming back.
You shut that bearded face of yours.
Why are you mad at me being happy about him coming back?
But you said he's not your favorite.
He's not my favorite.
Well, everyone's entitled to their own opinion.
Even if it's wrong.
Mine
is right.
Hey. Don't you go there.
But yeah, Michael Keaton has announced that he's coming back for The Flash after 30 years.
And also Ben Affleck's going to be in the movie.
Yeah, which was also a really fun reveal too. But so we get both of our Batman.
But no Henry Cavill.
No Henry Cavill.
Can I mention his CGI lip?
Yeah, you can mention it. But that was in Justice League.
So, if for those of you who have not seen the theatrical Justice League, And you saw it.
Well, and that was my first like little reaction was because that's the very first shot.
It's him.
Is him with a very terribly CGI'd upper lip.
Because Universal, he was making Mission Impossible Fallout.
Yep.
They wouldn't let him shave, which rightfully so. It's in your contract. You can't shave. And it's harder to. I feel like they said it's harder to add facial hair than it is to take it away.
Not based off of that CGI.
I know. That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
Just take it with a grain of salt.
Yep.
And so they're like, okay, let's just reshoot it, and we'll digitally remove it. And God, it was ugly.
So
I mean,
So
even
ugly.
at the up close scenes, and I'm like, that is just disgusting. I don't know. I honestly don't know how when like he had him by the face. I don't know how Ben Affleck could have like acted without laughing at looking at that random mustache and thinking like, man, that's gonna look bad at the end of this day. But again, The Flash was announced. Yep. Michael Shannon's coming back, and Supergirl's gonna be in it. Mm-hmm. But no Henry Cavill.
No Henry Cavill.
And no Gal Gadot.
I hate that.
And no Harry Fisher either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it was that was quite a weird DC fandom event.
Yeah. I liked the one last year better.
Yeah. They had more, but then again, you have more when that first DC fandom happened. I mean, it was in the middle of COVID, so like, not a whole bunch you really can announce or do since everything's on stop.
They announced the two Gotham Knights and Suicide Squad games.
Yep.
So.
But
the Snyder Cut was released.
But then, the Snyder Cut is released.
I love that movie.
Critical and positive acclaim. It's long.
4 hours.
It's long.
But there was an intermission where we all could go to the lobby,
and it was really well done. That was what the Justice League should have been. It's, to me at the time, I was like, okay, there's the swan song for the DCEU. Like I was like, that's pretty much it for it. Like the rest of the cast is pretty much done. Like, and I mean, Wonder Woman 84 is probably going to be coming out soon, and that's going to be...
Yeah, Wonder Woman 84 came out before.
You're right. It did come out before.
Which stank.
That didn't do well. We forgot to put that in our timeline. That's our fault. But yeah.
I mean, did we really need to add that in there?
Yeah, because it was part of the Warner Brothers slate, but yeah, it also didn't do too hot.
That should have been included in our HBO Max year-end date, because that's when that's when it started.
Correct. It was with Wonder Woman.
Yeah,
because they made a deal with them.
Patty. Yeah.
Yup.
But then I gotta talk about the Snyder Cut for a minute.
Yeah, go ahead. Go into it.
So that was when I kept working night shifts, because this was before. Were you in with us yet, Zach? Or
was I in Fantasyland?
It was March.
No, I was not. Wait. Yes, I was. I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. I think
you and I talked about it, I think.
Yep, we did.
We did talk about it.
Because I came in January of 2021.
Mm-hmm. And I remember meeting you because I got pulled.
Well, we shared a break room. So
yeah.
So we would have off conversations in the break room.
And then we talked about the Snyder Cut.
Yeah.
And now here we are. But I just love, even though I had to watch it in 2 sittings.
Yeah.
Because I started it.
I think I watched it in 3.
But, which, to be fair, you don't need to watch this long of a movie in one sitting.
Yeah, you don't need to watch it in one sitting unless it's Lord of the Rings. Then you watch it all.
Sure. But
then
if you need to take
all and you like it.
But if it was in theaters, then.
Oh, yeah.
Stay and watch.
They took this edit was made with the idea in mind that this was going to a streaming service. So the Snyder Cut was literally going to be epic.
But and I think that was what I literally, when I was watching that movie, I felt like I was watching Zack Snyder's 10 Commandments.
Pretty much.
Or Ben-Hur. That's literally what I was watching.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just watching, like...
It's an epic.
It really is.
It was written as an epic.
And I loved every second of it. And after I finished it, I'm just like... And that could have just... It wouldn't have made as much money as some people thought because 4 hours, that's a lot of showtime.
Correct. And if it was, and again, it was written for a streaming service.
Sure.
So if it would have been released in theaters and everything, and in an alternate universe, if Zack Snyder didn't step away and none of that family drama happened, that movie would have been pared down probably to about 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
I could see it getting 3.
Maybe 3.
Yeah.
But Warner Brothers would not have released a 4-hour movie into theaters. Mm-hmm. I do know that in the age of
Wait, it is
us.
Now.
Yes.
If it was made in the 80s or 90s, then I could see it.
Possibly.
But right now, definitely not. But
back when intermissions in movies did actually happen.
Now, what if there was an intermission involved?
Would have been a first in a while.
Yeah, but I feel like I would have stayed in it.
I would have. Well, and that's the big thing. I'm totally down for movies being longer and having an intermission.
Sure.
Like 100%.
Go get some ice cream and popcorn and all that stuff.
But honestly, we've gone into that conversation before of when we did the streaming versus theatrical. Mm-hmm. We brought up why an intermission would be good.
Go ahead and listen to that episode.
Again, another plug. But
good job, sir. Man, we're really good.
But it's, but yeah, I feel like they, even today, even with the new guard in with Discovery, I feel like they wouldn't release a 4-hour movie into theaters.
I agree.
But yeah, so the Snyder Cut is announced to universal praise, and fans call for the Snyderverse to continue.
Yeah. That doesn't even get off the ground, to be honest with you.
Well, no, quite the opposite, actually.
From what I saw, I didn't see anything.
No, from that call that we talked about earlier.
Oh, that's right.
David Zaslav has officially committed to the Snyderverse. Whether or not Zack Snyder will be involved or not, it remains to be seen.
True.
But that universe, again, has been committed, which is why I take double steps on your Flashpoint idea. I think, yes, there might be a little bit of Flashpoint elements to Flash, but I don't think it's going to be as universe changing as you are thinking, especially after the comments that Zaslav has made. And from what we hear, they're really happy with how the Flash turned out, despite everything that's been going on with Ezra Miller.
Speaking of.
Yes, we'll get to that, but they're really happy with the Flash. So if they were really happy with it, I don't think they would do that. They would double down on the Snyderverse.
Sure.
Well, say that they are doubling down on the Snyderverse.
Right.
So, as you said, speaking of,
two things happen.
Poor Ezra. Not really, but
they have it coming.
So, Ezra Miller decides to go to Hawaii. And
because vacation,
as everyone needs, and they are arrested for disorderly conduct at a bar. Evidently, they got really, really drunk and started spitting slurs and stuff, and was thrown out of the bar. And the police were called, and they took them into custody. Mm-hmm. Again, in Hawaii. Not too long after, a couple file a restraining order against Miller for their daughter's safety.
Yeah. I didn't really go into details about that.
Yeah, it's
pretty bad.
Evidently, it's an alluding to what's coming later.
Right.
Like originally, when what came later, I thought they were talking about this couple. They were not. This is a totally separate couple, which again shows Ezra, you really need to get your shit together, especially when it comes to underage kids.
Yeah, because you're dealing with little children, and you're a star.
Yeah, like with great power genuinely comes great responsibility, and you are not handling that responsibility well.
A lot of people are looking up to you as the Flash.
Mm-hmm. So those two things almost happen back to back. And then out of nowhere, out of absolute nowhere, Warner Brothers goes, hey, y'all, you know what the world needs?
Wonder Twins.
A Wonder Twins movie. To which everyone went,
What?
What?
I didn't even look at the cast list.
Yeah, and they announced a cast and they said, the script is written and we're about to shoot in a couple months. We are gonna do a Wonder Twins movie.
I was more excited for something else that was coming, but Wonder Twins. I don't care. Like, why?
Everyone was like,
why?
What? So that happens, and we finally then have the Batman released.
Loved it. I know you think it needs to cook.
It
but
needs to cook a little
no,
more.
it doesn't. It's
but
great.
We'll call it the universe that that it lives in. I will say is a very wonderful and interesting universe.
And Robert Pattinson, great Batman.
It's a great Batman.
But Bruce Wayne, we don't know because you didn't see him that much. But that was because they wanted him more as a Kurt Cobain.
Yeah, but again, it was a commercial and critical hit.
Listen to our review.
Listen to our review.
Like and share.
But they really, it was really well received.
Very well. I mean, made a lot of money, especially because early March, cases were starting to get a little high again.
Yep.
So, and I think our theater, thinking back to our review, it was about half full.
It was about half full. Yeah.
For a Thursday.
Yep. And it didn't make $1 billion, but it got close. It was like 900 million.
It was only 700.
Oh, 700 million. My fault. Yeah.
I think,
which is nothing. Is a lot of money. That's successful.
So I think the reason why it didn't, number one, 3-hour runtime.
Yep.
Number two, this
R-rated.
it wasn't R-rated.
Oh, you're right. It wasn't. Yep.
This was not the first, not the second, not the third, not the fourth, but the fifth actor to play Batman. If you're including Adam West, then it's the sixth.
Yep.
And literally all in not even 20 years.
Yeah.
Because so a lot of people I think were thinking, do I really want to see another actor play Batman again?
I do. But
I mean, I'd love to. I mean,
I'll take a seventh.
I'll take a 10th.
But yeah,
I think that's why.
That it might be. But again, a lot of people look at that 700 million as a failure. It's not.
No.
That's
a success.
a lot of people. There are a heck of a lot of movies that would kill for $10 million, $200 million.
Sure.
$700 million is a lot of money.
I also think some people are still riding the No Way Home high.
Well, and that's the thing. A lot of people, the buzzword of movies seems to be $1 billion.
Right.
If your movie doesn't make $1 billion, it's not successful. No, it's super duper uber successful and is a huge milestone if your movie makes $1 billion.
Sure.
But not every movie is going to make $1 billion.
Doctor Strange didn't.
Doctor Strange did it, and it's still successful.
Thor: Love and Thunder is not going to.
No, but again, still successful.
Of course.
You can't judge a movie by just making $1 billion. And a whole lot of people should also bring up, I personally love The Last Jedi. I like it. It made over $1 billion, and a lot of people say it's terrible. So might be terrible, but it was successful.
Sure.
All right. So
Discovery buys Warner Brothers.
there we go. Discovery, then it was talked about quite a bit. It had been in the rumor mill, but officially after Batman came out, Discovery officially put the money down to start buying Warner Brothers. Now, with big acquisitions like that, it takes a lot of time for that. So even though, yes, Discovery did purchase, it was only until June or July that the actual purchase itself has gone through.
Yeah, it took a little bit.
It with big ones like that, it has to go through the United States government. It has to be looked at, see if it's not going to cause a monopoly. That's it. The same thing happened with Disney and Fox.
Yeah. Well, also think about when AT&T bought Warner Brothers too. So.
Same thing happens. So with these big acquisitions, it takes time.
Yeah, it does.
And even still, there's still, yes, Discovery does now own Warner Brothers, it is official. It has been greenlit and everything.
Sure.
But even now, it's not even entirely official until like I think like
next year.
next year or something.
Mm-hmm.
So it's now just past the point of now Warner Brothers or Discovery can say yes
to other stuff.
to other stuff. They actually can have a say in things now.
Right.
So Discovery has now bought Warner Brothers. We now
Have
yet another Ezra Miller situation.
Two.
Always comes in multiples, man.
Well, three.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Three.
Sort of. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Quick succession.
yep. So Ezra Miller then is hits a woman with a chair at a private party.
That I did not see.
Dude,
Why do you watch that stuff, man?
it's just like a dumpster fire at that point. Like
Yeah.
the reason why I follow it is just because it's like, yet what another thing.
I don't know if I would. I've heard it's pretty graphic though.
Yeah, I didn't watch that one, but it's really evidently really, really bad. And then the next one, Ezra Miller is now accused of child grooming.
And there's an active search.
And they're like, we have no idea where Miller or the girl is. So it took a while for them to find him. But we also then learn, while the search is going on,
The Flash has summer reshoots.
Flash had summer reshoots. And evidently Ezra was present for some of them.
Yeah, I think all
So
of them
while...
too, yeah.
So that's kind of sketch.
Yeah.
That the police are actively looking for a person of interest, and Warner Brother goes, hey, let's shoot a movie while that's all happening,
And
and
then
not
at the
turning them
same-
into the authorities.
Yeah, and then the Vermont State Police charged Miller with burglary of alcohol. Mm-hmm. And so I think at that point, Discovery and Warner Brothers went up to him.
So yeah, and again, I will reiterate that this situation was not something that Discovery caused. It's something that baggage that came with the purchase.
They inherited it.
They inherited this problem when they bought Warner Brothers. Mm-hmm. I feel like here is where they officially went, all right, Ezra, at this point, we have to come down to something. Mm-hmm. I believe these talks are when they started.
Yes.
We'll later go into exactly what the official thing was, because they came out later. What
Right.
they decided to go behind closed doors, not even talking with Ezra on it. Mm-hmm. So the next thing, so it's purchased. Reshoots are happening.
Comic-Con happens, yeah.
Ezra Miller, Comic-Con happens, all these things happen. And Zaslav officially has control and then just starts cutting things.
Wonder Twins.
Wonder Twins, first thing that's cut. Who saw that? Everybody.
CW shows.
CW shows, get the axe. And Batgirl is notoriously given the axe.
But there's some light at the end of the tunnel.
Joker 2 is announced.
With Lady Gaga.
With Lady Gaga coming for Harley Quinn, or Harleen Quinzel. We are not entirely sure. We know that
It's
that's
supposed
the
to be a
character
musical,
that
yeah.
is going to be there. And it's going to be a musical. And
Which
the
I'm
title
all
is
for
announced.
that.
I am excited. And here's the thing. I don't know if it really and truly will be a musical.
I think it's going to be along the lines of A Star Is Born.
I think it's going to probably be in ways of that. I agree.
Which, to be fair, the only thing I could really see it being a musical is it goes back to the Joker thinking his past is multiple choice. Like, what if he thought his past was a musical?
Well, and here's the thing. I think so. I can't remember what the tagline for Joker 2 is.
Folie is like Joker Folie.
Folie Perdu. Yes.
Folie Perdu.
That is a medical term for two people sharing the same psychosis.
Right.
So my guess is it's going to ebb and flow between reality and the psychosis.
Yep.
And I think when it gets into the psychosis, that's when it's going to be a musical. And when we go into reality, that's when it will be
The
whatever.
drama, yeah.
So I think it will ebb and flow between the two. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think musical numbers will be, again, happening too often. I think they will be present, but not as much as like music theater.
Sure.
It ain't gonna be a Wicked or In the Heights.
No, I don't know if I would want to see Joaquin Phoenix do that kind of stuff because.
But he did well in Walk the Line. Like he can
did.
sing.
Yeah, he did.
He can sing.
But the thing that worries me with Joaquin Phoenix is he took a really deep dive with the Joker.
Yeah.
So I just hope that he keeps himself in a very solid mental state. And I think with Lady Gaga, because Lady Gaga is very method too.
Yeah.
So I think they'll be able to play off each other really well and
Yeah.
also kind of go to each other and be like, okay, let's tone it down a little bit. Let's get back to reality here. So hopefully they'll both, Joaquin Phoenix will learn from what happened with first Joker, and Lady Gaga will learn after what she did with what's that House of Gucci movie.
Oh yeah,
Because I know she had to see a therapist right after.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So hopefully they'll be able to. I think Todd Phillips has already
Work
said,
and build off of each other.
well,
yeah.
I think Todd Phillips has already said, "Oh, there's gonna be some psychiatrists on set."
I feel like you need that if you're ever touching the Joker movie. I feel like that's gotta be present.
I think there was a few on the first Joker.
Yeah. So Joker 2 is finally announced. No
Batman.
script. No Batman. But it's announced. Hasn't been greenlit, but that's the thing, since there's no script, it can't be greenlit. Like that's
But it came out with a release date.
it does have a release date. Just because it's official doesn't mean green light. Green light happens when you
start
are
production,
given
yeah.
the go to start principal photography.
Right.
That's what green light means. So when the news reports came, Joker 2 is not green lit. Of course it's not green lit because the script doesn't exist yet.
Yeah. I think it has drafts.
It has drafts, but it's not. This is the script. So yes, don't worry. You're fine. It's gonna be fine.
Hey, I'm ready for this.
I'm ready for it too. But then we get into the Hollywood Reporter says that they have a source inside Warner Brothers Discovery that says they've had a meeting about what they're going to do about Ezra Miller.
There are 3 options.
Yep, 3 options. What are those 3 options, bud?
Ezra Miller makes a statement, gets help, does their press tour for The Flash.
Yeah, in terms, if Ezra Miller makes a statement and gets help from a psychiatrist, he will be able to do limited press for The Flash.
Option 2, no Ezra Miller for the press tour.
And just release The Flash with no Ezra Miller absolutely whatsoever.
Or you cancel The Flash.
Or just cancel. Now,
they could have canceled it too.
And that's the thing. They've said they genuinely believe in this movie. They think this movie is actually genuinely really solid.
Right.
But it really all falls on Miller at this point. Mm-hmm. If Miller can truly get his act together and can at least just stay out of the limelight,
Right.
I think they can still release it.
I think so too.
Is it gonna do the money it would have done? Absolutely not.
Probably not.
Its reputation's already trashed as it is.
I think the only thing that may save it box office wise is Michael Keaton and Ben Affleck.
I think at best, if I had to put a guesstimate on box office, I think it will be lucky if it even makes over 100 million.
I'm gonna go out on.
I'm gonna say realistically, it's probably gonna make about 70, 80 million. But
domestic.
Total.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go out on a limb, and I'm gonna say 100, a little bit below 100 for domestic. I'm gonna say 95 million for domestic.
Okay.
But I'm gonna say around 270 to 300 worldwide. That's my brief estimation. It's gonna barely make profit.
I think. Yeah, no. I think I think domestic, it might make like probably about 60.
You say 60?
Probably about 60 domestically.
I
And then
think
probably
90.
it will make the rest like 90 or 100 million with international.
You think that?
I think international will bump it up to like the 90 or 100 million.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of his stuff, what's been going on, has mostly been
Most of their stuff has been happening in the United States, but I think it's
gonna hurt.
It's been such of a big story and a big, I guess, epic.
Yeah.
That I think it's gone past the waters. I think it's gone overseas. It's a story that sells itself.
But then, literally about 48 hours ago.
Yeah, this was a recent development. Miller has now issued a statement, has apologized, and has committed to getting help.
And says that they have complex mental health.
Yeah, which that's an understatement.
Yeah.
Which, again, we will always thank someone for trying to take care of themselves.
Correct.
Because obviously, no matter what we think of Ezra Miller, we want Ezra Miller to be healthy. We want them to get help.
Absolutely.
They desperately need it. So we are happy that it looks like they're going to be getting the help they need. Mm-hmm. We hope that they do get the help that they need, because saying and doing are two different things. Mm-hmm. So we hope that they do go out and get the help that they need. Mm-hmm. And is their career in Hollywood pretty much over? Probably.
Yeah.
There's no matter what help they get, I don't see a career for Ezra within the next 20 to 30 years.
Right.
I don't think people are going to touch them with a 10-foot pole.
I agree.
I think they've damaged their reputation beyond repair right now. Mm-hmm. Stranger things have happened. I could see a late career thing happening, maybe with someone taking a chance on him, but kind of like a Robert Downey Jr. situation.
Sure.
But Robert Downey Jr. didn't do all the stuff that Ezra has done.
Downey was more of drugs. Mm-hmm. Whereas
it was more self-harm than it was other people's harm.
I was say Miller's actually harmed other people.
Yeah. So we wish Ezra the best care. We wish them the safest recovery.
Sure.
Just take care of yourself, bud, because you're in for a long ride.
Yeah. But that's the timeline.
But that is the timeline.
We covered a lot.
It went quite a bit long, but thanks for sticking the ride with us.
I will say, though, this was fun.
It was fun.
Okay, so...
But with all that happening...
We have one more...
Where do you go?
Where do you go?
Well, Mitch, since we've now gone through all these different events of Warner and DC... Where do you see this going? Do you think they are heading in the right direction? Do you think it needs to cook a little more? Like, genuinely, do you eat it up? Do you think it needs to cook a little more? Or do you think it's now down with the dogs? Like, what do you think is going to happen with this?
So, before... I would not have even fed this. I would not even have fed the direction going to the dogs.
You would put it in the garbage disposal.
I would have given it to the garbage disposal. And right now, nothing they have done has changed my mind.
Really?
It hasn't.
Oh.
I mean...
Ladies and gentlemen, we have our first garbage disposal review in...
They've done nothing to change my mind. Warner Brothers and Discovery have done nothing to change my mind.
That's fair.
I love that they are trying to work with Matt Reeves to making his Batman trilogy. Mm-hmm. I hope they do. I love that they're still working with Todd Phillips with the Joker. But at the end of the day, bad films are still bad films.
Yep.
Bad directors and bad filmmakers are still bad filmmakers.
Okay.
Bad actors are still bad actors. Bad behavior is still bad behavior.
Yep.
And all of this could have all been avoided if Warner Brothers would have just done what they're made to do. And number one, trust their directors and trust their vision. They should have trusted Zack Snyder.
Yep.
Even though, yes, they shouldn't have made him the guy.
Yep.
They still should have trusted his vision with Justice League.
Yep.
Plain and simple, cut and dry. And number 2, they should have... Now, granted, no one could have seen this coming with Ezra Miller.
Yep.
But still, as soon as that first habit, like you saw...
The first incident with the video of them grabbing the girl's neck and slamming him down, yes.
They immediately should have issued a statement says, we are dealing with Ezra Miller. We're going to figure out what's going on.
Get them help.
Yep. And it's just the fact, I really don't like how they treated Ray Fisher.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
It was
beyond racist.
Yeah, way beyond racist.
And Joss Whedon, I can't even begin to mention what's going on with that guy. And also... I knew immediately, and I mentioned this earlier, Jeff Johns being the head of it.
Yep.
Worst decision ever.
Yep.
Period. Amen. And that's it. That's as far as I'm going to go with it.
That's fair.
It's in the garbage disposal.
There we go. Well, I guess I'm a little brighter on this.
Fire away.
So I wouldn't feed it to Jazz. I wouldn't throw it in the garbage disposal. I think we're still in the stages. I think we need to have it cook a little more. I think it's still a little too early for us to tell what's going on, because basically we are at a crucial point in Warner Brothers DC career.
Where would you DEF CON?
We're at like DEF CON 3.
Really?
Whew. I think we were at DEF CON 5.
Okay.
I think we were at DEF CON 5, but with Discovery purchasing Warner Brothers and the steps that they've been making of canceling things, of going through a whole bunch and cleaning house, it went from DEF CON 5 to the purchase was DEF CON 4, and then DEF CON 3 being the axing and seeing that they are trying to do something and care.
So is DEF CON 5 like the worst of the worst?
Yeah.
I thought DEF CON 1.
Oh, you're right. You're right. DEF CON was. So DEF CON 1, DEF CON 2, DEF CON 3. So
really, it was that. I
think it was catastrophic. I think the DCU was in the gutter.
So you were agreeing with me on that front.
I believed when HBO Max released the Snyder Cut, that was the swan song to the DCEU, and they were going to have to reboot it again.
Sure.
Put out Shazam, put out Black Adam, put out Aquaman, because they already committed to it and already had money into it.
Correct.
But basically turn tide and go.
Sure.
I believe Flashpoint could have been a thing with the Flash.
I agree, yeah.
But when David Zaslav said that they are committing to the Snyderverse,
Sure.
No longer thought that.
Sure.
I genuinely actually have faith in Discovery and David Zaslav to actually right this ship.
Sure.
I think they have made the tools available.
Sure.
But even if you have the tools available, doesn't mean that craftsmanship will come with the tools.
Sure.
So if David Zaslav can find the diamond in the rough of a Kevin Feige-esque character to guide the ship,
Sure.
to guide a 10-year plan built by that person, I'm sorry, whatever 10-year plan that they've created as a boardroom, they got to throw it away.
I'm not even giving it a 10-year plan anymore. I don't have a 10-year plan for that.
You need to get that person in the room day one.
Blank sheet of paper.
And make that plan. Use what you have.
Sure.
Because at this point, if they are committing to the Snyderverse, that's what they have.
Yeah.
So take what they have and build a 10-year plan off of that with that person.
Sure.
And they got to announce it within at least by February.
I'm going to say Christmas.
I would say Christmas, but I'll give them the leeway of the finishing out the fourth quarter.
Okay.
So by the end of the fourth quarter, have a person.
Okay.
If they have a person by the end of the fourth quarter, they have a shot.
But
if they don't, I agree. Down to the garbage disposal. That's done.
That's where you think they're.
That's where the line draws.
Yeah.
Because right now, everything right now is theoretical, and they're just tying up loose ends right now.
Sure.
That's literally, this is still old guard decisions right now in a new guard time.
Sure.
Because at this point, the old guard already spent this money, has already attributed money. There's not much you can do about all that right now.
Sure.
We'll see the new guard's plans starting to come to like fruition and projects by the new guard starting in
2024.
2023. Well, the plans announced in like 2023.
Sure.
Probably around. We'll probably see the fruits of those at the next San Diego Comic-Con.
I think so too.
But again, it all comes down to
What happens?
who that one person is.
Sure.
If that's, and that can't be Zaslav. It
No.
can't.
It can't be Greg Berlanti.
And
either.
it can't be Greg Berlanti, and it cannot be Jeff Johns.
If it is, I don't even know if I'd throw it down the garbage disposal. I'd throw it in the freaking lake.
I genuinely, if they trust Jeff Johns with Berlanti, I would be extremely hesitant, but would be like, okay,
Let's
if your
see, let's
first
give it a
two
try,
thing,
yeah.
if I got to give him a shot, and if it backfires, no, because Jeff Johns had their shot,
Yeah.
it's gone.
Yeah, he had.
We have this. This is Jeff Johns' universe.
Well, he had it twice. He had
Yeah.
it with Green Lantern, and he had it with this universe.
So if they announce Jeff Johns as it, nope, it's you should just at this point scrap WB for parts.
Yeah.
And make a new company at that point. Mm-hmm. Take the IP, put it under Discovery. Discovery's the new daddy. But
Yeah.
if they can get the right person for the right job, if they can start building a genuine story, I'm in. But I need to see it cooking more. But thanks for joining us on this journey, my friends.
I do have to say, this was a fun episode.
This was an interesting and fun episode.
Yeah.
It's a lot different. It's really long so thank you if you made it all the way to the end with us. But
I know I'm hungry.
if this is more content that you like this, please let us know at EL Podcast at mz at gmail.com. Send us an email if you liked it. If you think we should do different content, if you think this is not content we should do, let us know. Like, just give us feedback and let us know what's kind of you liking.
Well, Zach almost spoiled what is coming.
And don't worry, we also do have plans coming up. One's in the water currently.
Don't you dare.
It's in the water.
Don't you dare.
Along with a couple of other things that is actually probably going to be in the near future once we get some technical difficulties taken care of. So
And maybe guests.
guest we've announced.
We have?
Sort of. We've announced that we're willing to work with guests. So
Yeah.
we don't have any guests yet, projects that we are moving forward with just yet, but reach out. Like, if you want to talk about a movie that you see on the horizon that you really want to talk about with us, or an old movie, we would love to do it. So let us know. We're excited to have you. But until that time, I'm Zach,
I'm Mitch.
and we are an excellent little podcast.